Prologue. I never imagined my life would end where it began. Kneeling in the grand plaza of Nightshade Keep, the ancient stone cold beneath my knees, silver chains biting into my wrists. Around me, hundreds of wolves had gathered to witness justice, or what passed for justice under Kai Thornridge's iron rule. For years I'd spent in the wildlands, building a resistance from scattered survivors and broken wolves. For years plotting to avenge my mother and reclaim what was stolen from our family. And now I would die on the very spot where my mother had drawn her last breath. The cruelty of it wasn't lost on me. Elena Nightshade. His voice sliced through the murmuring crowd like a winter wind. Cold, merciless. The voice of a man who'd carved his throne from betrayal and blood. Daughter of the traitor Morgana. Commander of outlaws. Saboteur. Insurgent. The sentence is death. I forced myself to look up. Alpha Kai Thornridge stood 15 feet away, and even after 4 years of hating him, the sight of him sent a jolt of pure fury through my veins so intense it eclipsed my terror. He was exactly as I remembered, powerfully built, dark-haired, with features that were striking in the way dangerous things are beautiful. But his eyes had changed. When I'd known him years ago, when he'd been my mother's head warrior and someone I'd foolishly admired, his eyes had held warmth and laughter. Now they were hollow, lifeless, like he'd carved out his own humanity along with my mother's heart. "Do you have any final words?" he asked, drawing an ornate silver dagger from its sheath. The crowd surged closer. Hundreds of Nightshade wolves, come to watch their alpha execute the girl who'd dared to resist. I could have groveled, could have wept and begged for mercy, claimed I'd been misled, sworn loyalty if he'd spare my life. Instead, I raised my chin and met those empty eyes with every ounce of hatred I'd cultivated for 4 years. "You're nothing but a coward and a butcher," I said, my voice ringing across the silent plaza. "My mother trusted you. She believed in you. And you destroyed her for your own ambition." Something flickered in those dead eyes. Rage, perhaps. Or pain. "Your mother challenged my authority," Kai said flatly. "Pack law demanded resolution." "Pack law?" I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "You orchestrated a massacre. Not an honorable challenge. You struck her down while she was defending innocent pack members and called it righteousness. You know nothing of that night. I know everything. I saw you standing over her broken body. I heard you tell Silas that Morgana was eliminated. I know I had to flee or be slaughtered alongside her. I strained against my chains, leaning forward. And I know that one day, my warriors will return for you. So end me, Alpha. But understand that my death won't protect you. It will only fuel their vengeance." For a heartbeat, he simply stared at me. Then he moved. For long strides brought him to where I knelt. He seized my hair, wrenching my head back to expose my throat. The dagger pressed against my skin, frigid silver that seared like frost. This was the end. I closed my eyes, conjured an image of my mother, and refused to grant Kai the pleasure of seeing me weep. "Any wolf who grieves the traitor perishes with her," Kai declared to the assembly. His voice was controlled, but I felt his hand tremble slightly where it gripped my hair. The blade pressed deeper. I felt warmth trickle down my neck. Blood. My blood. Then everything froze. Kai went rigid. His fingers in my hair clenched convulsively. His breathing transformed, became ragged, almost frantic. I opened my eyes and looked up. His face had completely changed. The hollow emptiness had vanished, replaced by shock so profound it resembled agony. And his eyes were blazing gold. The crowd gasped audibly, because everyone understood what that meant. Alpha Kai's wolf had been dormant for 4 years, silent since the night he killed my mother. Rumors claimed he'd shattered his soul so completely that his wolf had withdrawn, possibly permanently. But now his wolf was awake, and it was fixated on me with desperate, feral recognition. "No," Kai whispered hoarsely. The blade shook against my throat. "No, this cannot be. This is impossible." Then I caught it. Cedar and storm and something primal. Something that reached into the deepest part of my soul. My wolf, typically disciplined and restrained, suddenly lunged forward with a force that stole my breath. "Mate. No. 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 Not him. Not the man who murdered my mother. Not the Alpha I'd spent 4 years learning to despise. Anyone in the world but him." But the mate bond paid no attention to reason or justice, or the chasm of blood between us. It locked into place like a chain forged from starlight and instinct, binding me to the man who'd annihilated my life. Kai recoiled as if I'd scalded him, the dagger clattering from his grip onto the stones. His second-in-command, Silas, stepped forward. Alpha, the sentence awaits completion. Kai didn't respond. He was staring at me with horror and something else. Something that resembled agonized hope. The crowd was buzzing now, bewildered and thrilled. They'd witnessed his wolf emerge. They'd seen the recognition. Alpha Kai, Silas pressed more insistently. The traitor's daughter awaits execution. I found my voice. Just finish it. I'd rather die than accept you as my mate. Something in my declaration seemed to pierce his shock. His jaw set. His hands balled into fists. Then he spoke, his voice resonating across the plaza with absolute alpha command. I invoke the ancient right of claimed mate. By the old laws, an alpha may claim a condemned enemy as mate rather than execute them. Elena Nightshade will not die this day. She will live as my bonded mate. The crowd exploded. Some cheered because mates were sacred, and even enemies became kin through the bond. Others roared in fury because I was a traitor's daughter, a rebel commander, and I'd just threatened their alpha's life. And I screamed, I reject this. I refuse the bond. Kill me instead. But Kai was already issuing commands, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. Take her to the alpha's quarters. Post sentries. She is not to be touched by anyone. He looked at me one final time, and I saw a man torn apart from within. You're my mate now, Elena. This isn't a blessing. It's not compassion. It's the only way I could save your life. Whether you accept it or not remains your decision. Guards hauled me to my feet. I fought them, hurling curses at Kai, at the moon goddess, at destiny itself. But as they dragged me from the execution plaza, I caught one last glimpse of him. He'd retrieved the silver dagger and was staring at it as though it were coated in venom. And his newly awakened wolf was howling, a sound of such raw torment that even through my rage and terror, I felt it resonate in my chest. The mate bond, freshly formed and utterly unwanted, pulsed between us like a second heartbeat. He'd condemned me to death. His scent had stopped him cold. And now we were bound together by a twist of fate that felt less like destiny and more like the moon goddess's cruelest punishment. I was the daughter of the woman he'd murdered. He was my fated mate. And somehow we had to survive each other. Chapter 1. 3 days before. 3 days before the execution, I'd been free. My rebel encampment was concealed deep in the wildlands, a collection of canvas shelters and crude structures housing nearly 300 wolves who'd lost everything when Kai seized control. Some had escaped the purge. Others had been banished for questioning his authority. All of them looked to me, Morgana's daughter, the rightful heir, to lead them home. We're running low on provisions, my Lieutenant Dessa had announced during our strategy meeting. Winter's approaching fast. We don't have sufficient food or medical supplies. Then we acquire what we need, I'd responded. From Nightshade Keep. From the pack that rightfully belongs to us. It was meant to be a swift operation. Infiltrate and extract before sunrise. We'd executed similar raids countless times before. But this time, they were ready for us. Kai's elite guards had encircled our raiding party before we'd penetrated 100 yards into Nightshade territory. We'd been set up, ambushed. We fought like cornered wolves because that's exactly what we were. But we were vastly outnumbered and strategically outmaneuvered. I watched 17 of my wolves fall that night. Watched Dessa take a crossbow bolt to the ribs while trying to shield my retreat. Watched my carefully assembled resistance scatter into the forest while I was overwhelmed by 8 guards and beaten until I couldn't move. When consciousness returned, I was shackled in a dungeon cell that reeked of old blood and despair. The cell was small, carved from ancient stone that had probably held prisoners for centuries. A single barred window near the ceiling let in a sliver of moonlight. Iron chains secured my wrists to the wall, short enough that I could barely stand. My body was a symphony of pain. Broken ribs, split lip, one eye swollen nearly shut. Every breath felt like knives in my chest. But physical pain was nothing compared to the crushing weight of failure. 17 dead. Dessa wounded, possibly captured. My resistance scattered. And me, chained and helpless, about to be executed by the man who destroyed everything I loved. For years of planning. For years of building an army, making allies, preparing for the day we'd take back Nightshade Keep. All of it ending in a cold cell and a public execution. I should have been more careful. Should have suspected a trap. But desperation had made me reckless, and now my people would pay the price. The dungeon door creaked open. Torchlight flooded the corridor, and a figure stepped into view. Silas, Kai's second in command, and the man who'd been present when my mother died. He was tall and lean, with silver-streaked hair and eyes like chips of ice. Where Kai radiated barely controlled violence, Silas was cold calculation. Precise. Methodical. In some ways, he frightened me more than Kai did. "Elena Nightshade," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Or should I say, Elena the Foolish? Did you truly believe you could raid Nightshade territory and escape?" I said nothing. Speaking would hurt too much, and I refused to give him the satisfaction. "We've known about your little resistance for months," Silas continued, circling my cell like a predator. "Every raid, every safe house, every sympathizer. We've been watching, waiting. Alpha Kai wanted to draw you out personally, and you obliged." My stomach dropped. Months. They'd known for months, and let us continue. Let us believe we were making progress, all while planning this trap. "Your second, Dessa, she's in the healer's ward. She'll survive." Silas paused at the cell bars. "Alpha Kai gave specific orders that she not be harmed beyond her injuries." Curious, don't you think? For a man who supposedly shows no mercy. He's keeping her alive to use as leverage. I managed to rasp. "That's not mercy. That's strategy." "Perhaps." Silas tilted his head. "Or perhaps our Alpha is not quite the monster you've convinced yourself he is. He murdered my mother. Your mother challenged him for Alpha status and lost. That's not murder. That's pack law. She challenged him because he was planning a coup. She was protecting the pack. Is that what you believe?" Silas's expression didn't change. Interesting how two people can witness the same events and remember them so differently. Before I could respond, he turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused. "Your execution is scheduled for 3 days from now. Dawn. In the Grand Plaza. Alpha Kai will carry it out personally." He glanced back at me. "I suggest you make peace with whatever gods you pray to." Then he was gone, and I was alone again with my pain and my failures and my hatred. 3 days. I had 3 days left to live. I thought about my mother, about the last time I'd seen her alive. She'd been preparing for a pack council meeting, dressed in her formal Alpha attire, her expression troubled. "Something's wrong, Elena," she'd told me. "Kai has been acting strange. Meeting with warriors in secret. I think he's planning something. Kai would never betray us," I'd said confidently. I'd been so naive then, so trusting. "He's loyal to you, to our family." She'd smiled sadly. "I hope you're right, my heart. I truly do." That was the last real conversation we'd had. 6 hours later, she was dead, and I was running for my life through the forest with Kai's warriors hunting me. I'd been 18 then, barely an adult, unprepared to lead, unprepared to survive on my own. But rage had kept me alive. Hatred had given me purpose. For 4 years, I'd lived on that hatred. Let it fuel me, define me, drive me forward. And now, in 3 days, it would all end. Unless. No, there was no unless. I was chained in the strongest fortress in the territory, scheduled for public execution by an Alpha who had every reason to want me dead. There would be no rescue, no last-minute escape, no miracle. This was the end. I closed my eyes and tried to accept it, tried to find peace in knowing I'd fought as hard as I could, that I'd never surrendered, that I'd made Kai's life difficult for 4 years, even if I couldn't ultimately defeat him. But peace wouldn't come. All I felt was rage and grief and bone-deep exhaustion. 3 days until dawn. 3 days until I knelt in the Grand Plaza and felt cold silver against my throat. 3 days until Kai Thornridge finally finished what he'd started 4 years ago. I pressed my forehead against the cold stone wall and let myself cry. Not from fear, but from frustration. From the bitter knowledge that I'd failed everyone who'd believed in me. "I'm sorry, Mother," I whispered into the darkness. "I'm so sorry." The moon outside my window offered no comfort. And in the silence of that dungeon cell, I began counting down the hours until my execution. Chapter 2, The Alpha's Burden. The execution was set for dawn, but sleep eluded me. I stood in my private chambers, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Nightshade Keep. The territory stretched before me in the moonlight, forests, settlements, training grounds. All of it mine. All of it won through blood and sacrifice. And all of it feeling hollow. For years. For years since I'd claimed the Alpha position. For years since Morgana's death. For years since my wolf had gone silent, retreating so deep inside me that most days I forgot what it felt like to be whole. The other alphas whispered about it, called me broken, cursed, said that killing Morgana had damaged my soul beyond repair. They weren't entirely wrong. You're brooding again. Silas's voice came from the doorway. My second-in-command entered without waiting for permission, carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of aged whiskey. I don't brood, I said flatly. You absolutely brood. You've perfected it into an art form. He poured 2 generous measures and handed me one. The prisoner is secure. The execution platform is prepared. Everything is ready for dawn. I took the glass but didn't drink. How is Dessa? The rebel lieutenant? Stable. The healer removed the bolt and sealed the wound. She'll recover fully. Silas studied me. Why do you care? I don't. But Elena will want to know her second survived. Elena. Silas's tone was carefully neutral. You're using her given name now? I shot him a sharp look. What would you prefer I call her? The traitor? The rebel? She has a name. A name you haven't spoken in 4 years. Interesting timing, considering you're executing her in. He checked his pocket watch. Approximately 6 hours. I turned back to the window, jaw tight. Silas had been my closest friend since childhood. He knew me too well, could read me too easily. It was useful in battle and infuriating in private. Something's troubling you, he pressed. More than usual. She looks like Morgana. The words came out before I could stop them. When she lifted her chin in that cell, when she looked at me with such hatred, it was like seeing Morgana again. Elena is not her mother. No, she's worse. Morgana fought me face to face, alpha to alpha. Elena has spent 4 years waging guerrilla warfare, destabilizing the pack, turning wolves against me. I finally took a drink, the whiskey burning down my throat. She's more dangerous than Morgana ever was. Then why do you seem reluctant to execute her? The question hung in the air. I didn't answer because I didn't have an answer. Or rather, I had an answer I didn't want to examine too closely. Do you remember what Morgana said? I asked instead. Right before the end? Silas was quiet for a moment. She said a lot of things. She said I'd regret it. That the choices I made that night would haunt me forever. I stared down at the amber liquid in my glass. She was right. Kai. I see her sometimes, I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. Morgana. In dreams. In reflections. She's always watching me, always judging. And tomorrow I'll kill her daughter. I'll execute the last piece of her that remains in this world. Elena made her choices, Silas said firmly. She's led attacks against our pack. She's killed our warriors. She's branded you a tyrant and a murderer. The fact that she's Morgana's daughter doesn't absolve her of those crimes. He was right. Logically, strategically, he was absolutely right. Elena Nightshade was a threat that needed to be eliminated. Her execution would send a clear message to anyone else considering rebellion. It was necessary. So why did the thought of it feel like swallowing broken glass? My wolf is gone, I said quietly. For years, and I can barely feel him anymore. Sometimes I think he died with Morgana, and I'm just a ghost piloting a corpse. That's the whiskey talking. No, it's the truth. I set down my glass. An alpha without his wolf is just a man. And a man can't hold a territory like Nightshade Keep. How long before the other alphas sense weakness? Before they challenge me? They wouldn't dare. They would. They will. It's only a matter of time. I moved away from the window. Maybe that's justice. Maybe that's what I deserve. Stop. Silas's voice turned hard. I won't listen to you spiral into self-pity. You did what you had to do 4 years ago. Morgana was leading the pack toward destruction. Her policies, her alliances, her refusal to adapt, she would have gotten us all killed. She trusted me. She was blind to reality. You saw what others couldn't. You made the hard choice. The hard choice, I repeated bitterly. Is that what we're calling it? Before Silas could respond, a knock sounded at the door. One of my guards entered, bowing quickly. Alpha, forgive the interruption. There's been a disturbance. My instincts sharpened. What kind of disturbance? The prisoner. The guard hesitated. She's been speaking to the other inmates. Telling them stories about the old days, about Alpha Morgana. Some of the guards are affected. Of course she was. Even facing execution, Elena was still fighting. Post additional guards, I ordered. No one speaks to the prisoner. No one enters her cell except by my direct command. Yes, Alpha. The guard bowed again and retreated. Silas raised an eyebrow. Afraid she'll start a prison revolt? I'm afraid she'll give people hope, I said. And hope makes people do foolish things. Like spend 4 years fighting an unwinnable war. Like lead a desperate raid that gets your people killed. Like stare down your executioner with defiance instead of begging for mercy. Elena had her mother's courage. That's what made her so dangerous. Get some rest, Silas advised, moving toward the door. Dawn comes early, and you'll need to be sharp. The pack will be watching. I'm not tired. You're never tired. You haven't slept properly in 4 years. He paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, Kai, I don't think you're a monster. I think you're a leader who made an impossible choice and has been punishing himself ever since. Maybe tomorrow will finally bring you some closure. After he left, I returned to the window. The moon was setting, darkness giving way to the gray pre-dawn light. In a few hours, the Grand Plaza would fill with spectators. The ceremonial blade would be prepared, and I would execute Elena Nightshade in front of the entire pack. It was necessary, strategic, just. So why did I feel like I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life? I thought about the girl I'd known 4 years ago. Elena had been barely more than a child then, bright-eyed and idealistic, always following her mother around, always asking questions. She'd looked up to me, trusted me, called me Uncle Kai, even though we shared no blood. The last time I'd seen her before the coup, she'd been excited about her upcoming birthday. 18, the age when young wolves typically found their mates. Do you think I'll find him soon? She'd ask me, practically bouncing with excitement. My mate. Mother says the bond is the most incredible thing you'll ever experience. I'm sure you will, I'd told her. And he'll be incredibly lucky. She'd smiled at me with such innocent trust. No idea that within days, I'd destroy her entire world. Now that innocent girl was gone, replaced by a hardened warrior who looked at me with pure hatred. A warrior I'd have to kill in a few hours. My wolf stirred faintly, barely a whisper in the back of my mind. For the first time in months, I felt the barest flicker of his presence. Wrong, he seemed to whisper. This is wrong. I know, I said aloud to the empty room. I know, but wrong or not, it was the only path forward. Elena Nightshade had to die. My rule depended on it. The pack's stability demanded it. Even if it destroyed what little remained of my soul. I watched the sky lighten, counting down the minutes until dawn. Until execution. Until the moment I'd have to look into Morgana's eyes one final time and end the Nightshade bloodline forever. The ceremonial blade waited in its case on my desk. Silver. Ancient. The same blade every Nightshade Alpha had used for generations. Including Morgana. I picked it up, testing its weight. Perfect balance. Razor sharp. It would be quick, at least. Painless. That was the only mercy I could offer. My hands trembled slightly, and I forced them steady. An alpha couldn't show weakness. Couldn't show doubt. Even when that alpha was about to commit an act that would haunt him for whatever remained of his life. Dawn was coming, and with it, the point of no return. Chapter 3. The hour before dawn. They came for me when the sky was still dark. 2 guards unlocked my cell, their expressions carefully blank. Neither would meet my eyes. I wondered if they felt guilty, escorting a prisoner to her death. Or if they'd done this so many times it no longer registered. Time to move, one of them said gruffly. They didn't bother with the chains this time. Where would I run? The dungeon was deep beneath Nightshade Keep, surrounded by hundreds of Kai's warriors. Even if I somehow overpowered 2 guards, I'd never make it out. Still, my wolf stirred restlessly as they led me through the torchlit corridors. She wanted to fight, wanted to go down snarling and clawing rather than meekly accepting death. Soon, I promised her silently. When we're in the plaza, when all eyes are watching, we'll make sure they remember us. We climbed stone stairs that seemed to go on forever. My ribs screamed with each step, but I refused to slow down, refused to show weakness. Finally, we emerged into a preparation chamber just off the Grand Plaza. Dawn light filtered through high windows, painting everything in shades of gray and gold. A woman waited there, elderly, with kind eyes and hands that moved with practiced efficiency. The Death Keeper. Every pack had one, someone who prepared condemned prisoners for execution. Sit, she said gently, gesturing to a wooden stool. I sat. The guards retreated to the doorway, giving us privacy. The Death Keeper began washing my face with warm water, cleaning away the dried blood and dirt from my cell. Her touch was surprisingly tender. You're very brave, she murmured. Most prisoners weep or beg by this point. Would it change anything? No. She dabbed at a cut above my eyebrow. But it's natural to be afraid. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm angry that I won't get to finish what I started. She paused, studying me with those ancient eyes. You have your mother's fire. Morgana was... She was a complicated woman. But she loved this pack fiercely. You knew her. I prepared her body after. The Death Keeper's voice trailed off. I'm sorry, child. For what happened to her. For what's happening to you. Something in her tone made me look closer. There were tears in her eyes. You don't believe the official story, do you? I asked quietly. About the challenge. I believe a great injustice was done 4 years ago, she said carefully. But I'm an old woman with no power, and speaking such thoughts could get me killed. She resumed cleaning my wounds. All I can do is show kindness to those who suffer. She combed my hair, braided it simply, dressed me in a plain white shift, the traditional garment for executions. White, to show that death washed away all sins, to return the condemned to innocence. The irony wasn't lost on me. There, she said finally, stepping back. You look peaceful. I caught my reflection in a polished metal mirror on the wall. The white shift made me look younger, more vulnerable. Like the girl I'd been 4 years ago, before everything fell apart. Kai would see this. Would see me dressed like a sacrificial lamb, and know exactly what message it sent. Not just an execution, but a cleansing. A return to order. Can I ask you something? The Death Keeper said hesitantly. Why not? I'll be dead soon. Do you hate him? Alpha Kai. The question surprised me. I considered lying. But what was the point? Yes, I said simply. With everything I am. She nodded slowly. Then perhaps death will be a mercy. Hatred is a heavy burden to carry. It's the only thing that kept me alive these 4 years. And look where it brought you. She touched my shoulder gently. I'll pray for you, Elena Nightshade. I'll pray that you find peace in the next life, and that the moon goddess grants you the justice you were denied in this one. Before I could respond, the door opened. Silas stood there, his expression unreadable. It's time. The Death Keeper squeezed my shoulder once, then retreated. The guards moved forward, flanking me. Silas studied me for a long moment. Any requests? Final words you want recorded? Tell Dessa I'm sorry, I said. Tell her to scatter the resistance. Tell them to go home, make peace with Kai, survive. The war is over. That's not what I expected you to say. What did you expect? More threats? More defiance? I shook my head. I'm done, Silas. I fought as hard as I could, and I lost. At least my people might live if they surrender. Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. You're stronger than your mother was. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It's an observation. He gestured toward the door. Come. The pack is assembled. We walked through a narrow corridor that opened onto the Grand Plaza. I could hear the crowd already. Hundreds of voices murmuring, waiting. My heart hammered against my ribs. My wolf paced frantically inside me, desperate and furious. We're going to die, I told her. But we're going to die with dignity. The corridor ended at a heavy wooden door. Beyond it, I could see the execution platform. The crowd. And Kai, standing tall and still, the ceremonial blade in his hands. Last chance to show fear, Silas said quietly. No one would blame you. I blamed myself for 4 years, I replied. For not being strong enough, smart enough, fast enough to save my mother. For failing her. I straightened my spine. But I won't fail her memory. I'll die the way she taught me to live, unbroken. Silas's expression shifted, something almost like regret crossing his features. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the cold mask of the second in command. Open the doors, he ordered. The guards obeyed. Hinges groaned. Sunlight flooded in, blinding after the darkness of the dungeon. And I stepped out into the Grand Plaza to meet my death. The crowd's noise swelled as I appeared. Some cheered. Others jeered. I heard my name shouted. Some with hatred, others with what might have been grief. I kept my eyes forward, focused on Kai. He stood on the raised platform, waiting. The rising sun painted him in shades of gold and shadow, making him look almost like a statue. Powerful. Untouchable. Inhuman. The guards led me up the steps. My legs felt steady. My hands didn't shake. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and anticipating for 3 days. The moment everything ended. I knelt on the cold stone, and they fastened the silver chains around my wrists. The metal burned against my skin, but I didn't flinch. Kai approached. Up close, I could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Good. I hoped killing me would haunt him. I hoped it would be the weight that finally broke him. Elena Nightshade, he began, his voice carrying across the silent plaza. Daughter of the traitor Morgana. Commander of outlaws. Saboteur. Insurgent. The sentence is death. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for blood. Hungry for justice. I raised my chin and met his empty eyes with all the hatred I'd been nurturing for 4 years. You're nothing but a coward and a butcher, I said clearly. My mother trusted you. She believed in you. And you destroyed her for your own ambition. And that's when everything changed. Chapter 4, The Bond Awakens. The words hung between us like a physical thing. I saw the flicker in Kai's eyes, that flash of pain I'd been hoping for. Your mother challenged my authority, Kai said, his voice flat and controlled. Pack law demanded resolution. Pack law. The laugh that escaped me was harsh, jagged. You orchestrated a massacre, not an honorable challenge. You struck her down while she was defending innocent pack members and called it righteousness. You know nothing of that night. I know everything. The chains bit into my wrists as I strained forward. I saw you standing over her broken body. I heard you tell Silas that Morgana was eliminated. I know I had to flee or be slaughtered alongside her. The crowd murmured, some uncomfortable, others angry. But I didn't care anymore. If I was going to die, they would hear the truth. And I know that one day my warriors will return for you. I continued, my voice ringing across the plaza. So end me, Alpha. But understand that my death won't protect you. It will only fuel their vengeance. For a heartbeat, Kai simply stared at me. The morning sun caught his face, highlighting the sharp angles, the exhaustion, the emptiness in his eyes. Then he moved. For long strides brought him to where I knelt. His hand shot out, gripping my hair and wrenching my head back with enough force to make me gasp. My throat was exposed, vulnerable, the pale column of flesh that he would slice open in moments. The ceremonial blade pressed against my skin. Cold, burning, silver that seared like ice against my pulse point. This was it. The end. I closed my eyes, conjured my mother's face, and refused to give Kai the satisfaction of tears. Any wolf who grieves the traitor perishes with her, Kai announced, his voice carrying with alpha authority. But I felt it, the tremor in his hand where it gripped my hair. The slight shake that betrayed something beneath that cold exterior. The blade pressed deeper. I felt warmth, my blood, trickling down my neck in a thin line. Then everything stopped. Kai went absolutely rigid. His fingers clenched convulsively in my hair, tight enough to hurt. His breathing changed, became ragged, desperate, like a drowning man breaking the surface. My eyes snapped open. His face had transformed completely. The hollow emptiness was gone, shattered, replaced by shock so profound it looked like physical pain. And his eyes, gods, his eyes were blazing gold. Pure, bright, burning gold. The crowd's gasp was audible, a collective intake of breath that rippled through hundreds of wolves. Everyone knew what golden eyes meant. Alpha Kai's wolf had been dormant for 4 years. Silent. Gone. Rumors claimed he'd shattered his soul so completely when he killed my mother that his wolf had withdrawn permanently, leaving him half alive, half dead. But his wolf was awake now, and it was staring at me with desperate, wild, unmistakable recognition. No, Kai whispered, his voice hoarse and broken. No, this cannot be. This is impossible. Then the scent hit me. Cedar and storm. Smoke in wild places. Something primal and ancient that reached past my conscious mind straight into my soul. My wolf, usually controlled and disciplined, suddenly surged forward with a violence that stole my breath. Mate. The word echoed through every cell of my body. Absolute. Undeniable. Devastating. No. No, 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 no. Not him. Not the man who murdered my mother. Not the Alpha I'd spent 4 years learning to hate with every fiber of my being. Anyone in the world but him. But the mate bond didn't care about logic. Didn't care about justice or blood or the chasm of betrayal between us. It locked into place like a chain forged from moonlight and instinct and fate itself, binding me to the man who destroyed everything I loved. Kai recoiled as if I'd burned him. The ceremonial blade fell from his grip, clattering onto the stone with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. His second-in-command stepped forward quickly. Alpha, the sentence awaits completion. Kai didn't respond. He was staring at me with horror and anguish and something else. Something that looked like drowning hope, like a man who'd been lost in darkness suddenly seeing light. The crowd was buzzing now, confused and thrilled. They'd witnessed his wolf emerge. They'd seen the recognition. Some were already murmuring the word, mate. Alpha Kai, Silas pressed, more urgently this time. The traitor's daughter awaits execution. I found my voice, though it came out strangled. Just finish it. I'd rather die than accept you as my mate. Something in my words pierced through Kai's shock. His jaw set. His hands balled into fists at his sides. The gold in his eyes flared brighter. Then he spoke, his voice resonating across the plaza with absolute alpha command that made every wolf present straighten instinctively. I invoke the ancient right of claimed mate. The crowd erupted into chaos. By the old laws, Kai continued, his voice cutting through the noise, an alpha may claim a condemned enemy as mate rather than execute them. This right supersedes all other sentences. Elena Nightshade will not die this day. She will live as my bonded mate. No, I screamed. The word tore from my throat. I reject this. I refuse the bond. Kill me instead. But Kai was already turning, issuing commands that cut through the pandemonium. Take her to the Alpha's private quarters. Post guards at every entrance. She is not to be touched, not to be harmed, not to be approached by anyone without my direct authorization. Guards moved forward. I fought them, thrashing against the chains, hurling every curse I knew at Kai, at the moon goddess, at fate itself. You bastard. I snarled as they hauled me to my feet. You coward. Just kill me. I won't accept this. I'll never accept this. The crowd was divided. Some cheering because mates were sacred. Even enemies became family through the bond. Others roaring in fury because I was a traitor's daughter, a rebel commander who'd threatened their alpha's life. Kai looked at me one final time as the guards began dragging me away. Up close, I could see he was shaking, actually trembling. His newly awakened wolf was barely contained, pressing against his skin, making his eyes glow brighter. You're my mate now, Elena, he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear over the chaos. This isn't a blessing. It's not compassion. It's the only way I could save your life. I don't want to be saved. Whether you accept the bond or not remains your decision. His expression was tortured, torn. But I couldn't. I can't. He didn't finish. Just turned away, his shoulders rigid, as the guards dragged me from the platform. I fought them every step, screamed until my throat was raw. But they were too strong, and I was injured and exhausted, and my wolf was going insane inside me, torn between the mate bond's instinctive pull and my conscious hatred. As they hauled me across the plaza, I caught one last glimpse of Kai. He'd retrieved the ceremonial blade and was staring at it like it was coated in poison. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it, and his wolf was howling. Not out loud. The sound was internal, psychic, but so powerful that I felt it through the newly formed bond. A sound of such profound anguish and confusion and desperate need that even through my rage and terror, I felt it resonate in my chest. The mate bond pulsed between us like a second heartbeat. Unwanted, undeniable, impossible to ignore. He'd condemned me to death. His scent had stopped him cold. And now we were bound together by a twist of fate that felt less like destiny and more like the moon goddess's cruelest punishment. I was the daughter of the woman he'd murdered. He was my fated mate. And somehow, impossibly, we had to survive each other. The guards dragged me into the keep, through corridors I vaguely remembered from my childhood, up stairs that seemed endless. My vision blurred with tears of rage and frustration. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But the bond hummed in my chest, warm and insistent and absolutely, devastatingly real. We reached a set of ornate double doors. The guards pushed them open, revealing a massive chamber. The Alpha's quarters. Kai's private rooms. They released me, and I stumbled, catching myself against a chair. The doors closed behind them with a heavy finality. I was alone, locked in my mate's quarters. The mate I wanted dead. The mate who'd murdered my mother. I screamed, raw, primal, wordless, and threw the nearest object at the wall. A vase shattered, crystal exploding into 1,000 pieces. It didn't help. Nothing would help. Because the bond was there, constant and unyielding, connecting me to the man I hated most in the world. And deep down, beneath the rage and horror, my wolf was whispering one word on repeat. Mate, mate, mate. I sank to the floor amid the broken crystal and wept. Chapter 5, Caged. I don't know how long I sat there among the shattered crystal, But eventually the tears stopped and cold reality set in. I was alive. Against all odds, against every expectation, I was still breathing. But at what cost? I forced myself to stand, to take stock of my surroundings. The Alpha's quarters were massive, easily 4 times the size of the room I'd had as a child. Rich dark wood furniture, thick carpets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the territory. A 4-poster bed large enough to sleep 5 people. Everything about this space screamed power and wealth and control. My mother's quarters had been comfortable but modest. She believed an alpha should live among the pack, not above them. Clearly, Kai had different ideas. I moved to the windows, testing them. Locked. Reinforced. Even if I broke the glass, we were 4 stories up with guards patrolling below. No escape there. The door was solid oak, bound with iron. I could hear guards moving in the corridor beyond. At least 6, maybe more. I was trapped. A prisoner in a gilded cage. My wolf paced restlessly, confused and agitated. She could feel the mate bond, that constant pull toward Kai, and it was driving her mad. Her instincts screamed at her to seek him out, to complete the bond, to claim what was ours. He's not ours, I told her firmly. He's a murderer. But she didn't understand concepts like murder or betrayal. She only understood mate. Mine. Need. I sank onto the edge of the massive bed, my body finally catching up to everything it had been through. The beating. The cell. The execution. The bond. I was exhausted beyond measure. But I couldn't sleep. Couldn't let my guard down. Not here, in Kai's territory, surrounded by his wolves. A knock at the door made me jump to my feet, instantly alert. Enter, I said, though I had no authority here. The door opened to reveal an older woman carrying a tray of food. Not the Death Keeper from earlier. This was someone else, with graying hair and a kind but cautious face. The Alpha ordered that you be fed, she said quietly, setting the tray on a table. He said to tell you that the food isn't poisoned, and that you need to eat to heal. I don't want anything from him. Nevertheless, you should eat. She gestured to the tray. You're injured. Starving yourself won't change your circumstances. I wanted to refuse out of pure spite. But she was right. I was injured, and I needed strength if I was going to figure out how to escape this nightmare. I approached the tray cautiously. Bread, cheese, fresh fruit, soup that smelled of herbs and meat. My stomach growled traitorously. There are clean clothes in the wardrobe, the woman continued. The bathing chamber is through that door. Healers will come shortly to tend your wounds if you'll allow it. Why is he doing this? I asked. Why show mercy now? The woman's expression was unreadable. I don't presume to understand the Alpha's mind. I simply follow orders. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, child, I'm sorry for your loss. Your mother she was good to many of us. She left before I could respond. I stared at the food for a long moment, then grabbed the bread and tore into it. Spite was one thing, but stupidity was another. I needed strength. The soup was rich and warming. The fruit was fresh and sweet. Against my will, I felt some of my physical strength returning. When I'd eaten my fill, I explored the bathing chamber. It was obscenely luxurious. A large stone tub, polished mirrors, soaps and oils that smelled of pine and earth. My reflection in the mirror was shocking. The white execution shift was stained with blood. Mine, and probably some from my earlier beating. My face was bruised, one eye still swollen. My braided hair was coming loose. I looked like exactly what I was. A broken prisoner. No, I thought fiercely. Not broken. Never broken. I stripped off the shift and filled the tub with hot water. Every movement hurt, but I forced myself through it. The hot water stung my wounds, but also soothed my battered muscles. As I soaked, I tried to think strategically. I was alive. That meant there was still a chance to fight, to escape, to somehow finish what I'd started. But the mate bond complicated everything. I could feel Kai even from here, his presence like a constant weight at the edge of my consciousness. I knew instinctively that he was somewhere in the keep, probably in his office or the council chambers. I could sense his emotional state, turbulent, conflicted, barely controlled. The bond worked both ways, which meant he could feel me too. The thought made my skin crawl. I climbed out of the tub and found the wardrobe the woman had mentioned. It was full of clothes, simple tunics and pants, all in my size. How had Kai known my measurements? I dressed quickly in dark pants and a soft gray tunic. The clothes were comfortable, well made, and I hated that they fit perfectly. Another knock. This time, 2 healers entered, carrying medical supplies. The Alpha sent us, one of them said, a middle-aged man with gentle hands. We're to treat your injuries. I almost refused. But again, practicality won out. I needed to be as healed as possible if I was going to escape. I sat stiffly while they worked, cleaning and bandaging my wounds, wrapping my ribs, applying salves that smelled of mint and something medicinal. 2 cracked ribs, the male healer said. Nothing broken, thankfully. The bruising will fade in a few days. The cuts are shallow, they'll heal cleanly. How fortunate, I said dryly. The female healer, younger with sharp eyes, studied me carefully. The Alpha was very specific about your care. He said we were to use the best supplies, show the utmost gentleness. How thoughtful of him. He also said, she hesitated. He said to tell you that you're not a prisoner, that these quarters are yours, and you may move about them freely. The guards are for your protection, not to keep you confined. I laughed bitterly. Protection. Right. Protection from what? His own pack that wants me dead. The healers exchanged glances but said nothing. When they finished, they packed up their supplies. The male healer paused at the door. I knew your mother, he said quietly. She healed my daughter once when she was very ill. Morgana sat with her through the night, used her own energy to pull her back from the brink. His eyes were sad. Whatever happened between her and Alpha Chi, I want you to know, not everyone believes the official story. Not everyone thinks you deserve to be here. He left before I could process his words. Alone again, I moved to the windows. The sun was higher now, the plaza below empty. The execution platform had been dismantled, as if this morning had never happened. But it had happened. I could still feel the cold blade against my throat, could still see Kai's eyes blazing gold as the bond snapped into place. The mate bond pulsed gently, a constant reminder of the impossible connection between us. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass and closed my eyes. What was I supposed to do now? I couldn't stay here. Couldn't accept this bond. Couldn't just give up everything I'd fought for. But I was trapped, injured, alone in enemy territory with no allies, no weapons, no escape route. For the first time in 4 years, I had no plan, no strategy, no path forward. Just a bond one didn't want with a man I hated, and the crushing weight of failure pressing down on me. Outside, clouds gathered, the weather turning, matching my dark mood. And somewhere in this keep, Kai Thornridge was dealing with his own impossible situation. An awakened wolf after 4 years of silence, and a mate who would rather die than accept him. The moon goddess's cruelest joke indeed. I stood at that window for hours, watching the territory I'd once called home, feeling the bond hum between us like a living thing. And I wondered if death might have been kinder after all. Chapter 6, The Alpha's Dilemma. The council chamber had never felt so suffocating. I stood at the head of the long table, facing 12 of my most trusted advisors and warriors, all of them staring at me with expressions ranging from confusion to outrage to barely concealed concern. You invoked the ancient right, Marcus, one of my senior warriors, said slowly. For the traitor's daughter. I'm aware of what I did, I said flatly. With respect, Alpha, another council member, Vera, leaned forward. This is unprecedented. The girl has been waging war against us for 4 years. She's killed our people, destabilized our pack. And now she's your mate. The word hung in the air like a curse. Silas, standing at my right hand, remained silent. He'd already expressed his thoughts privately, and they hadn't been encouraging. The mate bond is sacred, I said, falling back on the only defense I had. It supersedes political considerations. Pack law is clear. An alpha cannot execute. Pack law also states that traitors must be punished, Marcus countered. What kind of message does this send? That anyone can rebel against you as long as they're your mate. Elena didn't know she was my mate when she rebelled. That's irrelevant. She's still a threat. I gripped the edge of the table, feeling my newly awakened wolf surge against my control. For years of silence, and now he was awake and fixated on Elena with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Mate, protect, claim. The instincts were overwhelming, primal, nearly impossible to resist. The decision is made, I said, injecting alpha command into my voice. Elena Nightshade is under my protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. Is that understood? Reluctant nods around the table. But I could see the doubt in their eyes, the questions they were too afraid to ask. What about her rebels? Vera asked. Her second-in-command, Dessa, is still in our healer's ward. Do we execute her? No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Dessa is to be treated as a guest. When she's healed, she'll be released with a message for the remaining rebels. Surrender, and they'll be granted amnesty. Continue fighting, and we'll show no mercy. Amnesty. Marcus looked incredulous. After everything they've done? The war is over, I said firmly. Elena's capture was meant to end this. Her survival doesn't change that objective. We offer peace to those who'll take it. And those who won't, we deal with them as necessary. I moved around the table, letting my gaze settle on each council member in turn. I know this situation is complicated. I know it raises questions. But the mate bond is not something I can ignore or deny. My wolf has been dormant for 4 years, and now he's awake. That has to mean something. It means the moon goddess has a twisted sense of humor, someone muttered. I chose to ignore that. How is she? Silas asked quietly. Your mate. The question caught me off guard. Through the bond, I could feel Elena's emotional state, rage, confusion, despair, all churning together. She was in my quarters, pacing like a caged animal, her wolf as agitated as mine. She's adjusting, I said carefully. Has she accepted the bond? No. I didn't elaborate. Didn't mention how her rejection felt like claws raking across my soul, or how my wolf howled every time she pushed against the connection. Alpha Chi, Vera said, her tone gentler now. We all understand that the mate bond is powerful, sacred, but you have to consider the pack's stability. Many wolves lost family members to Elena's rebels. They want justice. And they'll have it, just not in the form of execution. Then what? She lives in luxury in your quarters while their loved ones are dead. The accusation stung because it was valid. Elena had blood on her hands. My people deserved justice. But she was my mate, and I couldn't kill her. Couldn't even contemplate it now that the bond had formed. She'll face consequences, I said. But those consequences won't include death. I'll determine an appropriate response once we've had time to discuss things. Discuss things, Marcus repeated flatly. With the woman who called you a murderer in front of the entire pack. My jaw tightened. Meeting adjourned. I'll inform you of my decisions regarding Elena and the rebels once I've made them. The council members filed out, most of them still radiating disapproval. Only Silas remained. That went well, he said dryly once we were alone. I don't need your sarcasm right now. No, you need someone to tell you the truth. He crossed his arms. You're making decisions based on instinct and emotion, not strategy. The mate bond is clouding your judgment. My wolf was silent for 4 years, I shot back. 4 years of feeling half alive, half dead. And now he's awake, and you want me to ignore that. I want you to think clearly. Elena hates you, Kai. She'll never accept this bond willingly. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're hoping for some fairy tale ending where she forgives you and you live happily ever after. That's not going to happen. I turned away, moving to the window that overlooked the training grounds. Wolves were sparring below, going through drills, preparing for threats that might never come. What would you have me do? I asked quietly. Execute her anyway? Reject the mate bond? I don't know. But keeping her locked in your quarters isn't a solution. It's a delay. He was right, damn him. Silas was always right. Through the bond, I felt Elena's presence like a constant ache. She was in pain, physical and emotional. My instincts screamed at me to go to her, to comfort her, to make everything right. But how could I make anything right when I was the source of her suffering? I need to see her, I said. Is that wise? Probably not. But I can't avoid her forever. We need to talk. Establish some kind of understanding. She tried to kill you 3 days ago. She led rebels against your pack. She called you a coward and a murderer in front of hundreds of witnesses. Silas raised an eyebrow. What exactly are you planning to talk about? I don't know, I admitted. But I have to try. Silas sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. Then at least be careful. Elena is dangerous, mate bond or not. Don't underestimate her just because your wolf wants to protect her. I nodded, though we both knew I was already in too deep to be objective. After Silas left, I stood alone in the council chamber, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on me. For years ago, I'd made a decision that had cost me everything. My wolf, my peace, my soul. I'd killed Morgana believing it was necessary, that it was the only way to save the pack from her increasingly reckless leadership. And maybe I'd been right. Maybe her policies would have destroyed us all. But the cost had been devastating, and now fate had given me her daughter as a mate. A constant reminder of that terrible night, a living embodiment of everything I'd lost and everything I'd done. Was this punishment? Redemption? Some twisted combination of both. Through the bond, I felt Elena's emotions shift. The rage was still there, but beneath it, I sensed exhaustion, fear, loneliness. My wolf pushed against my control, desperate to go to her. Mate needs us. Mate is hurt. Go to mate. She doesn't want us, I said aloud to the empty room. But my wolf didn't care. To him, Elena was everything. The missing piece that would make us whole again. If only it were that simple. I left the council chamber and made my way through the keep. Wolves bowed as I passed, but I barely noticed. My entire focus was on the bond, on Elena, on the conversation we needed to have. When I reached my quarters, the guards straightened to attention. Has she tried to leave? I asked. No, Alpha. She's been quiet. We heard something break earlier, but no attempts to escape. I nodded and opened the door. Elena stood by the window, her back to me. She'd bathed and changed into the clothes I'd provided. Even from behind, I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself like a warrior ready for battle. The bond surged at her proximity, my wolf practically singing with joy at being near our mate. But when she turned to face me, her eyes held nothing but cold hatred. Come to gloat? She asked, her voice sharp as broken glass. No, I came to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. I closed the door behind me, staying near the entrance, giving her space. I know you hate me. I know you blame me for your mother's death. And I know the last thing you want is to be bonded to me. How perceptive. I pushed forward. But the bond exists whether we want it or not. We're connected now. We can either fight it and destroy each other, or we can find a way to coexist. Coexist, she repeated, her laugh bitter. You want me to coexist with my mother's murderer? I want you to survive. Because whether you believe it or not, Elena, I never wanted you dead. You ordered my execution. I had no choice. You were leading rebels against my pack. You've killed my warriors. What was I supposed to do? Maybe not kill my mother in the first place. Her voice cracked, raw emotion breaking through. Maybe not destroy everything I loved. The words hit like physical blows. Through the bond, I felt her pain, deep, scarring, all-consuming. And beneath my own guilt and regret, my wolf whimpered. Mate hurts. Make it better. Fix it. But I didn't know how to fix this. Didn't know if it could be fixed. I can't change the past, I said quietly. I can only deal with what's in front of us now. And right now you're my mate. That means something, Elena. Even if you wish it didn't. She turned back to the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. It means nothing, she said. A biological accident. A cruel joke. It doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't make me forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Then what are you asking for? I moved closer carefully. A truce. We don't have to accept the bond fully. We don't have to be together. But we can't keep fighting like this. It'll destroy us both. Maybe I want to be destroyed, she said softly. Maybe that would be better than living with this. The despair in her voice nearly broke me. Elena, get out. She didn't look at me. Just get out. I can't do this right now. Every instinct screamed at me to stay, to push through her walls, to make her understand. But Silas's warning echoed in my mind. Don't underestimate her. I'll send food later, I said. And if you need anything, I need you to leave me alone. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Then I left, closing the door softly behind me. In the corridor, I leaned against the wall, feeling the mate bond pulse with shared pain. This was impossible. Elena would never accept me, never forgive what I'd done, and I couldn't blame her. But walking away, leaving her alone in that room, felt like tearing off pieces of my soul. My wolf howled in protest, desperate to return to our mate. But for once, I couldn't give him what he wanted. Because sometimes the kindest thing you could do for someone was leave them alone, even when it destroyed you. Chapter 7. Broken Conversations. 3 days passed in a haze of isolation and rage. I barely slept. When I did, nightmares plagued me. My mother's death, the execution that almost was Kai's golden eyes staring at me with desperate need. I'd wake gasping, feeling the phantom press of silver against my throat. The bond was constant torture. I could feel Kai even when he was nowhere near. His presence like a weight I couldn't shake, his emotions bleeding into mine through the connection. Guilt, longing, confusion. It made me want to scream. My wolf was no better. She paced constantly, whining for our mate, confused why I wouldn't go to him. She didn't understand betrayal or murder. She only understood the biological imperative screaming through our veins. Mate. Need mate. Go to mate. He killed mother. I told her for the 1000th time. But she didn't care. Or couldn't comprehend. The mate bond overrode everything else in her primitive mind. I'd stopped throwing things after the first day. The staff cleaned up broken vases and shattered mirrors without comment, their faces carefully neutral. They brought food 3 times daily. Always excellent, always untouched. I ate just enough to survive, refusing to find comfort in anything Kai provided. He came to the door several times. I could feel him on the other side, sense his hesitation. But he never entered without permission, and I never gave it. On the 3rd evening, there was a different knock. Softer. Tentative. What? I called out sharply. The door opened to reveal Dessa. My second-in-command looked thin and pale, one arm bound in a sling, but alive. Very much alive. Dessa. I crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into a careful embrace. Gods, I thought, I wasn't sure if. Takes more than a crossbow bolt to kill me, she said, wincing slightly as I squeezed too hard. Though it certainly tried. I released her, scanning her for other injuries. What are you doing here? Did Kai send you? No one sent me. I demanded to see you, and after 2 days of being incredibly annoying, they finally allowed it. She studied me with sharp eyes. You look terrible. I feel terrible. I heard what happened. At the execution. The whole pack is talking about it. Dessa moved carefully to sit on the edge of the bed. Your mate. Kai Thornridge is your mate. The words sounded even more absurd spoken aloud. It's a mistake, I said flatly. A cosmic error. The moon goddess was drunk when she decided this pairing. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Then she's cruel. I turned away, unable to meet Dessa's gaze. I'm supposed to be bonded to the man who murdered my mother? That's not fate. That's punishment. Dessa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. Elena, there's something you should know. About that night. About your mother's death. Something in her tone made my stomach drop. What are you talking about? I've been recovering in the healer's ward. The staff there, they talk. And some of them were present 4 years ago. Some of them saw things. She took a breath. The official story, that Kai challenged your mother and won in fair combat. That's not exactly what happened. I know that. I was there. I saw him standing over her body. Yes, but did you see the actual fight? Did you see what led up to it? I froze. I know. I came after. I heard the commotion and ran to find her already. My voice broke. Already dying. Elena, your mother wasn't just an alpha. She was also making decisions that were tearing the pack apart. The alliance she was forming with the Shadow Moon pack. It would have made us vassals. We would have lost our independence. That's a lie. Kai's propaganda. It's not. Dessa's voice was gentle but firm. I didn't want to believe it either. But I've talked to wolves who were in those council meetings. Your mother was brilliant and strong, but toward the end, she was also desperate. She'd made enemies with other packs through her aggressive expansion policies. She needed protection, and she was willing to sacrifice our autonomy to get it. I shook my head, refusing to hear this. No, Mother would never. She would. She did. And Kai tried to reason with her first. He tried to convince her there was another way. But she wouldn't listen. Dessa stood, moving closer. That night, she didn't challenge him. He challenged her. Called for a formal alpha duel because it was the only way to stop what she was doing. You're defending him? Disbelief and betrayal churned in my stomach. Dessa, he killed her. I'm not defending anyone. I'm telling you what actually happened. There's a difference between murder and a sanctioned challenge. She was my mother, and I loved her too. But she wasn't perfect, Elena. None of us are. Dessa's eyes were sad. You've built your entire identity around avenging her, around hating Kai. But what if the story you've been telling yourself isn't the whole truth? I wanted to rage at her, to throw her out, to refuse everything she was saying. But doubt had crept in, insidious and unwelcome. I thought about my mother in those final months. She had been different, more anxious. making decisions quickly, without her usual careful consideration. I'd attributed it to stress, but what if it was more? Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because you're my friend, and you're about to make decisions that will affect the rest of your life. You deserve to know the full truth before you make them. Dessa touched my shoulder. The mate bond chose Kai for a reason. Maybe it's time to figure out what that reason is. I can't forgive him. I'm not asking you to. But maybe you could try understanding him. There's a difference between those things too. Before I could respond, another knock sounded. This time it was Kai. He entered, his expression hardening slightly when he saw Dessa. You shouldn't be out of bed yet. I'm fine, Dessa said coolly. I wanted to see Elena. I told you she wasn't accepting visitors. And I decided I didn't care what you told me. Dessa's voice was steady, fearless in a way that made me proud. With respect, Alpha, you can't keep her isolated forever. Something flickered in Kai's eyes. Respect, maybe. No, I suppose I can't. He looked at me. May I speak with you? Privately. Dessa can stay. This concerns pack business. Beta-level information. His tone was formal, distant. Unless you'd like me to share sensitive security details with a captured rebel? Dessa squeezed my shoulder. It's fine. I should rest anyway. She moved toward the door, pausing next to Kai. Be gentle with her. Whatever you think she's done, she's been through hell. I'm aware. After Dessa left, silence stretched between us. Kai stood near the door, hands clasped behind his back, every inch the formal alpha. The bond hummed with proximity, my wolf immediately perking up with interest. Mate. Here. Close. I shoved her down ruthlessly. What do you want? I asked. I came to inform you that Dessa is being released tomorrow. She'll carry a message to your remaining rebels. Surrender and receive amnesty, or continue fighting and face eradication. How generous. It's more than they deserve after killing my warriors. His jaw tightened. But it's the right strategic move. The war needs to end. So you've mentioned. I also came to check on you. The formal mask cracked slightly. You haven't been eating. I eat enough. The staff says you barely touch your meals. You've lost weight. How touching that you notice. Kai's hands clenched, and through the bond, I felt his frustration spike. Elena, I'm trying. Trying what? To play the concerned mate? To pretend you care. I laughed bitterly. You ordered my execution 3 days ago. Forgive me if I don't believe this sudden concern is genuine. The execution was. He cut himself off, running a hand through his hair. It was the first time I'd seen him look anything less than perfectly controlled. It was necessary. Politically. Until the bond. Until the bond trapped you. Yes. The admission was quiet. Yes, it trapped us both. The honesty surprised me. I'd expected deflection, excuses. Not this raw acknowledgement. I don't know how to do this, Kai continued, his voice low. I've never had a mate. Never expected one after my wolf went silent. And now I have you, and you hate me, and every instinct I have is screaming at me too. He stopped, shaking his head. It doesn't matter what my instincts say. What do they say? His eyes met mine, blazing gold. To protect you. To claim you. To make everything right even though I know I can't. The words came out rough, almost pained. To fall to my knees and beg you to accept the bond, because my wolf is dying without your acceptance, and it's taking everything I have to stay functional. The raw honesty stole my breath. Through the bond, I felt it. The desperate need, the barely controlled wolf, the man hanging on by a thread. Part of me, the vindictive part, was glad he was suffering. But another part, the part connected to him whether I wanted it or not, ached with shared pain. I can't accept it, I whispered. I can't just forget what you did. I'm not asking you to forget. He took a step closer, then stopped, as if held back by invisible chains. I'm asking for time. For us to find some way to coexist that doesn't destroy us both. The bond won't break, Elena. Fighting it is only making us both miserable. What are you suggesting? A truce. Real conversation. You ask me anything you want about that night, about your mother, about why I did what I did. I'll answer honestly. And in return, you consider, just consider, that maybe the story isn't as simple as you've believed. It was exactly what Dessa had suggested. And I hated that it made sense. And if I hear your truth and still hate you, then we figure out how to live with that. His expression was bleak. But at least we'll both know where we stand. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to cling to my rage and my certainty. But Dessa's words echoed in my mind. You deserve to know the full truth. Fine, I said finally. One conversation. You answer my questions honestly, and I'll listen. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. Relief flashed across Kai's face, so profound it was almost painful to witness. Tomorrow, he said. We'll talk tomorrow. Tonight, please eat something. For me. Don't make it about you. For you then. Because you need strength, and starving yourself helps no one. He left before I could argue, and I was alone again with the bond pulsing between us. Tomorrow, I would hear his side of the story. And God's help me, part of me actually wanted to understand. Chapter 8. Truths and Lies. I barely slept that night. When dawn came, I was already awake, standing at the window watching the territory come to life. Wolves moving through the grounds, preparing for the day. Normal pack activities. As if my entire world hadn't been turned upside down. Kai arrived mid-morning, carrying a tray himself rather than sending staff. I thought we could eat while we talk, he said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. If you're willing. I eyed him warily but took a seat. The food smelled good, fresh bread, eggs, fruit, tea. My stomach growled despite my determination to remain unmoved. Kai sat across from me, careful to maintain distance. Even so, the bond thrummed with his proximity, my wolf practically purring with contentment at having our mate near. I ignored her and took a piece of bread, if only to have something to do with my hands. Ask your questions, Kai said quietly. I'll answer everything honestly. I'd spent the entire night preparing for this moment, organizing my thoughts, deciding what I needed to know. But now that he was here, offering truth, only one question mattered. Did you plan to kill my mother before that night? Kai didn't flinch from the directness. No. I hoped until the very last moment that she'd change her mind, that we could find another solution. But you went to her rooms armed. Silas told me you said Morgana was finally dealt with after she died. I went armed because I knew she wouldn't step down peacefully. The formal challenge required weapons. As for what I said to Silas, he paused, pain flickering across his face. Context matters. What I actually said was, the Morgana situation is finally dealt with, meaning the political crisis. Not her as a person. That's a convenient interpretation. It's the truth. Elena, your mother was making decisions that would have destroyed this pack. The alliance with Shadow Moon. Do you know what the terms actually were? Protection, security, strength in numbers, vassalage. Kai's voice hardened. Morgana was negotiating to make Nightshade keep a subsidiary pack under Shadow Moon's control. We would have lost our autonomy, our territory rights, our independence. Alpha Cedric of Shadow Moon would have had authority over our lands, our wolves, our resources. That's not. I started then stopped. Because I didn't actually know the terms. I'd been 18, not involved in pack politics. I'd only heard what my mother chose to share. She didn't tell you, Kai said, reading my expression. She didn't tell most of the pack. Only the inner council knew, and most of them opposed it. She was planning to announce it as a done deal, bypass the traditional vote. Why would she do that? Because she was desperate. Kai leaned forward slightly. The expansion policies she'd implemented, aggressive territorial claims, conflicts with neighboring packs, they'd made powerful enemies. 3 packs were threatening war. We were outnumbered, outmatched. She needed protection, and Cedric offered it. But the price was everything we were. I wanted to call him a liar. But something in his voice, in the bond between us, told me he was telling the truth as he understood it. She was trying to protect us, I said, but it came out weaker than I intended. She was trying to protect us her way, without considering other options, without listening to counsel. Kai's jaw tightened. I tried to reason with her, multiple times, suggested alternatives, peace treaties, strategic alliances that didn't require surrender, defensive preparations. She refused to consider any of it. So you challenged her. So I challenged her. He met my eyes steadily. Because pack law gives any wolf the right to challenge an alpha they believe is leading the pack to destruction. It was the only legal way to stop what was happening. And you won. Yes. The word was heavy, laden with regret. I won. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. Tell me about the fight. The actual fight. Kai was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant, remembering. I went to her rooms that night. Brought Silas as witness, which the law requires for formal challenges. Your mother knew why I was there the moment she saw us. She wasn't surprised. What did she say? She said, So it's come to this. I always knew you had ambition, Kai, but I thought you had loyalty too. His voice was flat, reciting words that clearly still haunted him. I told her I was loyal to the pack, to its survival, that her choices were forcing my hand. She laughed, said I didn't understand the bigger picture, that I was too young, too idealistic to see what needed to be done. Through the bond, I felt his pain, old wounds never healed. We fought in her chambers. No audience except Silas. It lasted maybe 10 minutes. She was strong, Elena. Incredibly strong. But she was also exhausted. I don't think she'd slept in days. Her wolf was slower than it should have been. He paused. I didn't want to kill her. I thought if I could just wound her badly enough, force a yield, she'd step down and we could find a peaceful transition. But that's not what happened. No, she wouldn't yield. Kept fighting even when she was bleeding out. And finally, I had no choice. It was her life or the pack's future. His hands clenched on the table. I chose the pack. Silence stretched between us. I tried to process everything he'd said, tried to reconcile it with the story I'd built in my mind. When I found her, I said quietly. She was barely conscious. But she looked at me and she said, "Run. Don't trust Kai. Run." Kai's eyes closed briefly. I know. I was there. You came in right after the fight ended. I tried to explain, tried to tell you what happened, but you ran. And I let you go because, his voice cracked, because you just lost your mother, and I couldn't bring myself to hunt down a grieving child. How noble of you. It wasn't nobility. It was guilt. He looked at me directly. I killed someone I cared about, Elena. Someone who'd trusted me, mentored me, treated me like family. Even if it was necessary, even if it was legal, it destroyed something inside me. My wolf retreated that night because I'd violated every instinct he had. Wolves don't kill their own pack, and your mother was pack, was family. Doing what I did broke me. The raw honesty in his voice, in the bond, was undeniable. This wasn't a man making excuses. This was someone who'd lived with crushing guilt for 4 years. Why didn't you tell people the truth? I asked. About the Shadow Moon Alliance. You could have explained, and made Morgana look weak. Foolish. Destroyed her legacy completely. Kai shook his head. The official story, that she challenged me and lost, it preserved her dignity. Let her be remembered as a strong alpha who fell in honorable combat rather than a desperate leader making terrible choices. You protected her reputation even after killing her. I owed her that much. I stood abruptly, needing to move, to think. Everything I'd believed for 4 years was shifting, reforming into something more complicated than simple good and evil. You still killed her, I said, but the conviction in my voice had weakened. Whatever your reasons, whatever the politics, you took her from me. I know, and I've paid for it every day since. Kai remained seated, giving me space. But Elena, you have to understand. If I hadn't acted, Shadow Moon would have absorbed us within months. We would have lost everything. Your mother's legacy would have been the alpha who surrendered her pack. Maybe that would have been better than civil war. There was no civil war. Most of the pack accepted the transition. A few dozen wolves followed you into exile, but the majority stayed. Because they understood what was at stake. That stung more than I wanted to admit. I'd always told myself I was fighting for the pack, that they were oppressed under Kai's rule. But if most had stayed willingly, what about the purge? I demanded. The wolves who were exiled or killed after you took power? Exiled, yes. Killed, no. Kai stood now, moving slowly. Anyone who actively threatened pack stability was given a choice, swear loyalty or leave. Most chose loyalty. The few dozen who left joined you. But no one was executed. I didn't want more blood on my hands. That's not what I heard. Because your rebels told you what you wanted to hear. Elena, I'm not claiming I'm perfect. I've made mistakes as alpha. Been too harsh sometimes, too inflexible. But I never instituted a reign of terror. Never massacred innocents. The pack under my leadership is stable, prosperous, at peace. You can verify that yourself. Talk to anyone here who isn't a guard. They'll tell you the truth. I wanted to find a flaw in his story, a lie I could latch onto. But the bond wouldn't let me deceive myself. He believed every word he was saying. Either he was telling the truth, or he'd convinced himself so thoroughly that even the bond accepted it as fact. I don't know what to do with this, I admitted quietly. For 4 years, I've known exactly who I was. Morgana's daughter, the rightful heir, the resistance leader fighting a tyrant. And now you're telling me everything I believed was based on incomplete information. I'm telling you the situation was more complex than either of us wanted it to be. Kai took a careful step closer. Your mother wasn't evil. Neither am I. We were both trying to do what we thought was right, and we ended up in an impossible situation with no good choices. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. Another step. But maybe it means we don't have to be enemies. Maybe we can find a way forward that honors your mother's memory while accepting the reality of what happened. Through the mate bond. Through whatever connection we can build. The bond is there whether we want it or not. We can fight it and destroy ourselves, or we can try to make something bearable out of an impossible situation. He was close now, close enough that I could feel his warmth, smell cedar and storm. My wolf was going insane, desperate for contact, for acceptance, for completion. And beneath my confusion and pain, I felt something else. Something I didn't want to name. Understanding, maybe. Or the beginning of it. I can't forgive you, I said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just understanding. Time. A chance. A chance for what? To prove I'm not the monster you think I am. His eyes were intense, earnest. To show you that the bond chose us for a reason. To build something that isn't built on hate. I wanted to say no. Wanted to cling to my certainty, my rage, my purpose. But Dessa's words echoed again. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. And looking into Kai's golden eyes, feeling the bond pulse between us, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was truth in that. 1 month, I heard myself say. Give me 1 month. I'll stay here, I'll learn about the pack. I'll talk to people and verify what you've told me. And at the end of that month, I'll decide whether this, I gestured between us, is something I can even consider accepting. Hope blazed in his expression. 1 month. I can work with that. But I'm not promising anything, I warned. The bond stays uncompleted. We remain separate. This is evaluation, not acceptance. Understood. He held out his hand. Truce. I looked at his offered hand for a long moment. Taking it felt like betrayal. Of my mother, of my cause, of everything I'd fought for. But refusing it felt like giving up the chance to understand, to heal, to maybe find something beyond rage and pain. Slowly, I reached out and clasped his hand. The moment our skin touched, the bond flared, electric and warm. My wolf howled with joy. Kai's eyes flashed gold, and I knew his wolf was doing the same. Truce, I whispered. And as we stood there, hands clasped, the first fragile thread of something that wasn't quite trust, but wasn't quite hate stretched between us. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't acceptance. But it was a beginning. Chapter 9. Seeing clearly. The next morning, Kai kept his word. I woke to find a note slipped under my door, written in bold, precise handwriting. You have full access to the keep and grounds. The guards have been instructed to escort you anywhere you wish to go, but not to restrict your movement. Talk to anyone. Ask anything. See for yourself what Nightshade Keep has become. K. I stared at the note for a long moment, surprised. I'd expected restrictions, surveillance, control. Not freedom. Well, limited freedom. I was still trapped in his territory, still bound by the mate bond. But it was more than I'd had yesterday. After dressing in the simple clothes provided, dark pants, a forest green tunic, I opened the door to find 2 guards waiting. Both looked young, maybe mid-20s, and neither seemed particularly hostile. I want to see the pack, I announced. The real pack, not just the keep. The taller guard nodded. We'll escort you wherever you'd like to go, Lady Elena. Don't call me that. What should we call you? I almost said prisoner. But that wasn't quite accurate anymore. Just Elena. They led me through the keep, and I paid attention this time. Really looked at what Kai had built. The corridors were clean, well maintained. We passed wolves going about their business, warriors, staff, families. I braced for hostile glares, for whispers and accusations. Instead, most just nodded respectfully. A few looked curious. One elderly woman actually smiled at me. It wasn't what I'd expected. We emerged into the main courtyard, and I stopped short. When I'd lived here as a child, this space had been functional but plain. Now it was transformed, gardens blooming with late autumn flowers, stone pathways, benches where wolves could rest. Children played near a fountain. I didn't remember being there before. Alpha Kai commissioned the gardens 3 years ago. One of my guards offered. Said the pack needed beauty, not just function. That didn't fit the tyrant narrative I'd constructed. Take me to the residential areas, I said. I want to see what. They led me through winding paths to the housing sections. I remembered these buildings, simple, sturdy structures that housed families and single wolves. They looked better, repaired, expanded. Each dwelling had small personal touches, flower boxes, painted doors, children's toys in yards. Can I talk to people? I asked. Of course. You're free to speak with anyone. I approached a young mother hanging laundry outside her home. She startled when she saw me, her eyes widening. You're Elena Nightshade, she said quietly. I am. Can I ask you some questions? She glanced at my guards nervously but nodded. I suppose. What's it like, living here under Alpha Kai's leadership? The woman seemed to consider her words carefully. It's good. Better than it was during the conflicts, certainly. My mate works in the border patrols. He comes home every night. We have enough food, safe housing. The Alpha makes sure families are provided for. You're not afraid of him? Afraid? She looked genuinely confused. No. Why would I be? He's strict about pack law but fair. When my daughter was sick last winter, he personally ensured the healers had everything they needed to treat her. Her expression softened. She survived because of that. But he killed the previous Alpha. My mother. The woman's face grew somber. I know. That was difficult. Many of us loved Alpha Morgana. But toward the end, things were unstable. Dangerous. Kai restored order. Not everyone agrees with how he did it, but most understand why. It was a more nuanced answer than I'd expected. I thanked her and moved on, stopping wolves at random. A blacksmith who praised Kai's fair trade policies. An elderly warrior who admitted the transition had been hard but necessary. A teacher who spoke of new schools Kai had established for pack children. Not everyone was positive. One older man spat when he heard Kai's name, muttering about betrayal and lost honor. A young woman looked away sadly, mentioning a brother who'd been exiled. But the overwhelming majority? They seemed content, even grateful. It was deeply unsettling. I want to see the training grounds, I told my guards. The training complex was impressive. Warriors sparred in organized groups, their movements precise and disciplined. I watched them work through drills, noting the efficiency, the camaraderie. A familiar figure caught my eye. Silas, overseeing a group of younger warriors. He noticed me and approached, wiping sweat from his brow. Elena, exploring your new home, gathering information. There's a difference. Is there? He studied me with those calculating eyes. What have you learned so far? That either everyone here is an excellent liar, or things aren't as bad as I thought. Or maybe you were working with incomplete information. Silas gestured to the training grounds. Kai has built something stable here. Strong. Is it perfect? No. But it's functional. Peaceful. The pack thrives. At the cost of my mother's life. At the cost of many things. Silas's expression grew serious. I was there that night, Elena. I witnessed the challenge. Your mother fought with honor, and Kai gave her every opportunity to yield. She chose to fight to the death rather than step down. Because she thought she was right. Perhaps she was in her own way. But being right doesn't always mean winning. He paused. Kai has carried the weight of that night for 4 years. It broke something in him. You want to hate him. I understand that. But try to see him clearly too. See the man who visits the injured after every training accident. Who sits with grieving families. Who hasn't taken a full night's sleep in years because he's too busy trying to be the perfect alpha to make up for how he got the position. Why are you telling me this? Because you're his mate. And whether you accept that bond or not, you'll influence him. He's been barely functioning, running on duty and guilt. Since you arrived, since his wolf woke up, there's been a change. Silas met my eyes directly. He's starting to hope again. Don't destroy him carelessly. Before I could respond, a commotion drew our attention. A group of warriors was dragging someone toward the center of the grounds. A man, bloodied and struggling. Who is that? I asked. Silas's expression darkened. One of your rebels. He was caught trying to infiltrate the keep. Probably trying to rescue you. My heart sank. What will happen to him? That depends on Alpha Kai. As if summoned by his name, Kai appeared, his presence commanding immediate silence. He looked at the captured rebel, then at me, something unreadable in his expression. Bind him and bring him to the judgment hall, Kai ordered. Elena with me. It wasn't a request. I followed him to a large hall I remembered from childhood. This was where pack justice was dispensed, where where alphas heard grievances and passed sentence. The rebel was forced to his knees in the center. He was young, maybe 20, and I recognized him, Marcus, one of my newer recruits. Terror and defiance warred on his face. Kai stood before him, every inch the alpha. You were caught attempting to breach pack security. Under law, that's an executable offense. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Marcus lifted his chin. I came for Elena. To free her from your tyranny. She's not imprisoned. You forced her into a mate bond. The moon goddess forced the bond. I simply chose not to execute my mate. Kai's voice was cold. Elena is free to leave whenever she wishes. She stays by her own choice. Marcus's eyes found mine, confused and desperate. Elena? Is that true? All eyes turned to me. This was a test, I realized. Not just of Marcus, but of me. Of where I stood. I could lie. Could tell Marcus I was a prisoner. Fuel the rebellion, keep the war alive. Or I could tell the truth. It's true, I said quietly. I'm not a prisoner. The mate bond is real, and I'm trying to understand the situation. You're betraying us. Marcus's voice cracked. After everything we fought for. I'm trying to find the truth, I corrected. There's a difference. Kai watched me, something that might have been gratitude flickering in his eyes, then turned back to Marcus. You came here for your leader, believing she needed rescue. That shows loyalty, if not wisdom. He paused. I'll give you the same choice I've given all captured rebels. Swear loyalty to Nightshade Pack and accept my authority as Alpha, or leave our territory permanently and never return. Choose exile or integration. But choose now. Marcus looked at me again, seeking guidance I couldn't give. The war is over, Marcus, I said gently. Dessa carries amnesty offers to everyone else. You can accept Kai's rule or leave peacefully. But fighting won't change anything now. What about justice for Alpha Morgana? Justice is more complicated than I thought. The admission hurt, but it was true. Make your choice based on what's best for you, not what you think I want. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he bowed his head. I accept exile. I can't swear to the man who killed my Alpha. Kai nodded, respect in his expression. Honorable. You'll be escorted to the border with supplies and safe passage. If you return, you'll be considered hostile. Understood. Understood. As guards led Marcus away, Kai turned to me. Thank you for not lying to him. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it because it was the truth. He moved closer. What you're doing, seeing the pack, talking to wolves, gathering your own information, that takes courage. It would be easier to cling to what you believed. Maybe. But I owe it to myself to see clearly. My mother taught me that. To seek truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Something warm flickered in the bond. She taught you well. We stood in the judgment hall, sunlight streaming through high windows, and I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, but the first crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. I'm not ready to accept the bond, I said. I'm still angry, still grieving, still confused. I know, but I'm starting to see that maybe, you're not the monster I thought you were. That's more than I hoped for. Kai's smile was small but genuine. 1 month, he said, to see for yourself. How much time do you need now? I thought about the mother with her healthy daughter, the thriving training grounds, Marcus being offered exile instead of execution, the complexity of everything I'd witnessed. I don't know, I admitted, but I'm willing to keep looking, keep learning. That's enough. He offered his hand again. Come, let me show you what else has changed. Let me show you the pack your mother built and I've tried to honor. This time, when I took his hand, it felt less like betrayal and more like possibility. The bond hummed between us, warm and steady. And for the first time in 4 years, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, fate hadn't been cruel after all. Chapter 10, Walls Crumbling. Over the next 2 weeks, I explored every corner of Nightshade Keep. Kai gave me complete access as promised. I attended council meetings, watched him govern, spoke with dozens of pack members. I visited the schools, the healer's ward, the farms that fed the pack. I observed training sessions and sat in on dispute resolutions. And everywhere I looked, I saw a pack that functioned, that thrived even. It was disorienting, watching the careful narrative I'd built collapse under the weight of reality. Kai was strict, yes. Demanding. He held his wolves to high standards and didn't tolerate disloyalty. But he was also fair. He listened to grievances, considered multiple perspectives, made decisions based on the pack's welfare rather than personal gain. I watched him spend hours mediating a boundary dispute between two families, ensuring both felt heard. Saw him personally deliver news of a warrior's death to the family, staying with them through their grief. Observed him redirect resources to repair a damaged school rather than expand his own quarters. These weren't the actions of a tyrant. They were the actions of an alpha who cared deeply, perhaps too deeply, about his pack. "You're thinking too loudly," Dessa said one afternoon. We were sitting in the garden, enjoying rare autumn sunshine. She'd been staying in the keep as a guest, healing and observing. "I'm trying to reconcile what I believed with what I'm seeing. And I'm failing." I watched Kai across the courtyard, speaking with a group of young warriors. Even from this distance, I could feel him through the bond. His focus, his determination, the constant low-level anxiety that seemed to be his baseline state. He's not what I thought, Dessa. No one ever is when you look closely. I spent 4 years hating him, building an army to destroy him. And now I'm starting to think. I stopped, not wanting to voice it. That maybe you were wrong. That maybe the situation was more complicated than hate and vengeance could address. I turned to her. What do I do with that? How do I let go of 4 years of purpose? You find a new purpose. Dessa squeezed my hand. The Elena I know doesn't give up. She adapts. If fighting Kai isn't the answer, then figure out what is. The mate bond. Maybe. Or maybe just being here, being part of the pack again, helping build something instead of tearing it down. She studied me carefully. You're already different, you know. Less angry. More open. I don't feel different. I feel confused. Confusion is progress. It means you're questioning instead of just reacting. Before I could respond, Kai approached. My wolf immediately perked up, and I couldn't completely suppress the warmth that spread through my chest. "May I join you?" he asked. "It's your garden," I said, but gestured to the bench beside me. He sat, maintaining careful distance even as the bond hummed with proximity. "I wanted to let you know, the last of your rebels accepted the amnesty offer this morning. The war is officially over." Something in my chest loosened. They're all alive, all given choices. Some swore loyalty and rejoined the pack. Others took exile with supplies and safe passage. But no more blood was shed. Thank you for that. I'm not a monster, Elena. I never wanted their deaths. He paused. Or yours. Dessa stood smoothly. I should check on my healing progress with the healers. I'll leave you two to talk. After she left, silence stretched between us. Kai seemed tired, shadows under his eyes deeper than usual. You're not sleeping, I observed. Alpha insomnia. It's chronic. He attempted a smile. How are you finding the pack? Functional. Stable. Nothing like what I expected. And how does that make you feel? I considered the question carefully. Lost. I built my entire identity around fighting you, being the resistance leader. And now that identity doesn't fit anymore. So build a new one. Kai shifted slightly toward me. You're intelligent, capable, natural leader. Those qualities don't disappear just because the war ended. They just need a new direction. What direction? Whatever you choose. You could help with pack administration. Gods know I could use another perspective on council decisions. Or work with the warriors. You're an excellent strategist. Or focus on community building, education, anything that interests you. His voice softened. You don't have to be defined by opposition, Elena. You can be defined by what you create. The words resonated deeper than I wanted to admit. What about us? I asked quietly. The bond. Kai's expression grew cautious, hopeful, vulnerable. What about it? I've been thinking. About what you said. About my mother. About everything. I turned to face him fully. I don't think I'll ever be happy about what happened that night. But I'm starting to understand it wasn't as simple as murder. That you made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. His breath caught. Elena, I'm not saying I forgive you. I interrupted. I'm not even sure what forgiveness would look like. But I'm saying, I see you more clearly now. See the man who's been carrying 4 years of guilt. Who lost his wolf because killing my mother broke something essential in him. Who could have executed me but chose to save me instead, even knowing I hated him. I couldn't kill you. The words came out rough. Even before the bond snapped into place, I was already doubting. Already searching for another way. When I smelled you, when my wolf recognized you as mate, it just confirmed what my heart already knew. What did it know? That you were important. Essential. that losing you would destroy whatever pieces of me remained. His golden eyes locked on mine. I know the bond is biological, instinct, but sometimes I think the moon goddess knew what she was doing, knew that you were the only one who could understand what that night cost me, the only one who could make me face what I'd done and still move forward. My heart pounded. That's a heavy responsibility. I'm not asking you to carry it. I'm just explaining why the bond feels right to me even though the circumstances are impossible. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he took my hand. You asked for a month to decide. It's been 2 weeks. Do you need more time? I don't know. My fingers tightened around his despite my uncertainty. Part of me wants to accept the bond, let myself feel what my wolf is screaming for. But another part is terrified that accepting it means betraying my mother's memory. Your mother would want you to be happy. Would she? I'm not sure. She'd want me to be loyal, strong, honorable. And you are all those things. Kai's thumb traced gentle circles on my palm. Accepting the mate bond doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you someone who can see beyond hate to possibility. Someone who can build bridges instead of burning them. Your mother taught you to seek truth. You're honoring her by doing exactly that. Tears pricked my eyes. When did you get so wise? 4 years of suffering breeds perspective. His smile was sad. I've had a lot of time to think about choices and consequences. About what matters and what doesn't. And what matters, Elena, is that you're here. Alive. Giving us a chance when you have every reason not to. The bond makes it hard to refuse. The bond makes it hard to ignore the pull. But you could still reject it. Reject me. Choose exile or a life of carefully maintained distance. He leaned closer. You're here because some part of you wants to be. He was right. I could feel it. Beneath the confusion and grief and lingering anger, there was curiosity, interest, the beginning of something that might become respect or understanding or even affection given time. My wolf is driving me insane, I admitted. She wants completion, wants to accept you fully. My wolf is the same. He's been dormant for 4 years, and now he's awake and fixated on you with an intensity that's almost painful. What happens if we complete the bond? Honestly, I don't know. I've never had a mate before. But from what I understand, it deepens the connection, makes us more attuned to each other's emotions and physical state, creates a partnership that goes beyond just romantic or political. That sounds intense. It is, but it's also supposed to be incredible. 2 wolves becoming one unit. Complete trust and intimacy. His eyes searched mine, but only if both parties want it. A forced bond, even a fated one, would be torture for us both. I sat with that, feeling the bond pulse between us. The warmth, the rightness of his hand in mine. I need more time, I said finally. But not because I'm still hating you. Because I need to be sure. Need to trust that what I'm feeling is real and not just biology. Take all the time you need. Relief flooded his expression. The fact that you're even considering it is more than I hoped for. We sat in the garden as afternoon faded to evening, hands clasped, bond humming. Not speaking, just existing together. And for the first time since the execution square, I felt something like peace. The moon rose, full and bright. Under its light, I could almost hear my mother's voice. Be strong, my heart, but also be wise. Don't let hate consume you. Find your own path. Maybe this was my path. Not the one I'd planned or expected, but the one fate had laid before me. A path that led through forgiveness and understanding toward something new. Kai's wolf howled softly inside him, and my wolf responded. Not with words, but with feeling, recognition, acceptance, the beginning of bond. 2 more weeks, I said quietly. Give me 2 more weeks to be completely sure. You can have forever if you need it. But looking at him in the moonlight, feeling the bond settle into something warm and steady, I didn't think I'd need forever. Just enough time to let go of who I'd been and embrace who I was becoming. Morgana's daughter, yes, but also Kai's mate, and maybe eventually simply Elena. Chapter 11. The Breaking Point. The attack came without warning. I was in the library, reading about pack history, when the alarm sounded. A series of howls that sent every wolf in the keep into immediate alert. My guards burst through the door. We're under attack. Eastern border. You need to get to the safe room. What? Who's attacking? Shadow Moon Pack. Alpha Cedric himself is leading the assault. My blood ran cold. Shadow Moon. The pack my mother had been trying to ally with. The alliance Kai had prevented by challenging her. How many? At least 200 warriors. Maybe more. The guard grabbed my arm. We need to move now. No. I pulled free. I need to see Kai. The Alpha is already mobilizing defenses. He gave specific orders. You're to be protected at all costs. I'm not hiding while the pack fights. I pushed past them, running toward the sounds of organized chaos. The courtyard was a flurry of activity. Warriors assembling in formation, weapons being distributed, strategies being shouted. And in the center of it all, Kai, fully armored and radiating alpha authority. He saw me and his expression hardened. What are you doing here? You should be in the safe room. I'm not hiding. Let me fight. Absolutely not. I'm a capable warrior. You know that. You're my mate. The words came out fierce, possessive. I won't risk you. The pack needs every fighter. The pack needs their alpha focused, not distracted worrying about his mate's safety. Kai's eyes blazed gold. Elena, please. I can't protect you and lead the defense simultaneously. Before I could argue, Silas appeared. Alpha. Cedric is demanding to speak with you. Under truce flag. Kai's jaw tightened. Fine. Assemble a delegation. Elena stays inside the keep. I'm coming with you, I said. Elena, this is about my mother's alliance, isn't it? About the deal you stopped. I met his eyes steadily. I have a right to be there. To understand what she was trying to prevent. Kai looked like he wanted to argue, but through the bond, I felt his resignation. Stay behind me. Stay silent unless I give you permission to speak. And if things go wrong, you run. Understood. Understood. We rode to the eastern border with Silas and 20 elite guards. The tension was suffocating. Through the bond, I felt Kai's controlled fury, his strategic mind working through dozens of scenarios. Alpha Cedric waited at the border marker with his own contingent of warriors. He was older than Kai, perhaps 50, with silver-streaked hair and eyes like chips of ice. Power radiated from him in waves. Kai Thornridge, Cedric said, his voice carrying across the distance. 4 years since you destroyed my alliance. 4 years of waiting for the right moment. And now, I've come to collect what was promised. Nothing was promised, Kai replied coldly. The alliance died with Morgana. Whatever deal you thought you had became void the moment I became Alpha. A deal is a deal. Morgana agreed to make Nightshade keep a subsidiary pack. That agreement doesn't die just because she did. That agreement was made under duress and without pack consent. It was never valid. Cedric's eyes flicked to me. And who is this? The little rebel I've heard so much about. His smile was predatory. Elena Nightshade, Morgana's daughter. How interesting that you're standing with the man who killed your mother. I'm standing with my mate, I said before Kai could stop me. Whatever your business with this pack, it's with Alpha Kai now, not with ghosts of deals past. Your mate, Cedric laughed. How convenient. The daughter and the murderer, bound together. The moon goddess has a twisted sense of humor. State your demands, Kai said, his voice hard as stone. You didn't bring 200 warriors just to reminisce. My demands are simple. Honor Morgana's agreement. Make Nightshade a subsidiary pack under Shadowmoon's protection. Or I'll take this territory by force and install an alpha who will comply. That's not going to happen. Then we go to war. 200 of my warriors against your... What, 150? The math isn't in your favor, Kai. Through the bond, I felt Kai's assessment. Cedric was right. We were outnumbered. A direct assault would be costly, and even if Nightshade won, the casualties would be devastating. Why now? I asked suddenly. 4 years you've waited. Why attack today? Cedric's attention focused on me. Because I've been building alliances, gathering strength. Because I wanted to be certain of victory. And because I heard that Kai finally found his mate, a weakness I can exploit. I'm not a weakness, I said. Oh, but you are. Every alpha's mate is a weakness. A vulnerability. His smile was cruel. Tell me, Kai, how focused can you be on battle when you're worried about protecting your precious mate? Kai's fury spiked through the bond, but his voice remained controlled. You have one chance to withdraw. Take your warriors and leave Nightshade territory. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed. But I want it to end in bloodshed. I want you broken and defeated. I want this pack under my control. Cedric's eyes gleamed. Morgana understood that Nightshade couldn't stand alone. She was smart enough to see that. You were too proud. And now your pride will cost your pack everything. My pack is stronger than you think. We'll see. I'll give you until dawn to reconsider. Agree to my terms or face annihilation. Cedric turned his horse. Oh, and Kai? If you fall in battle, I'll claim Elena as spoils of war. Morgana's daughter would make an excellent trophy. Kai's wolf surged, and I felt him barely contain the urge to attack. Only iron discipline kept him from starting a fight we couldn't win. We rode back to the keep in tense silence. Once inside, Kai immediately called a war council. Numbers, he demanded. 200 Shadowmoon warriors confirmed, Silas reported. We have 143 combat-ready wolves. Another 20 who could fight if necessary, but aren't fully trained. Terrain advantages? The eastern forest provides cover, but they know that as well as we do. If they attack at dawn, they'll have the sun at their backs. Kai paced, his mind clearly working through strategies. We can't win a direct confrontation. We need to make it costly enough that Cedric decides withdrawal is preferable to victory. Guerrilla tactics, I suggested. Everyone turned to look at me. What? I spent 4 years fighting outnumbered. Small strike teams, hit-and-run attacks, make them bleed for every yard of territory. They have numbers, but we have home advantage and motivation. Silas looked impressed. That could work. Tire them out, frustrate their advance, make the cost too high. It's risky, another council member said. If they break through our harassment tactics and reach the keep, then we fortify and hold, Kai said. But Elena's right. We can't meet them head-on. We need to be smart. He looked at me. You know guerrilla warfare. Plan the harassment strategy. Me. You led rebels for 4 years. You know how to fight when outnumbered. I'm trusting you to design our defense. The faith in his eyes, in the bond, was overwhelming. He was giving me command of our survival strategy. Give me maps and a list of available warriors, I said, my mind already working. I'll have a plan within the hour. The council dispersed to prepare. Kai pulled me aside, his hand finding mine. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. I can assign someone else. No, I want to help. This is my pack too. The words surprised me, but they were true. Besides, I have experience fighting battles I shouldn't win. Time to put that to good use. Elena, his voice was rough. If anything happens to you, nothing will happen to me. I'm not planning to be on the front lines. That's not the point. Cedric threatened you directly. He'll target you specifically if he can. Then we make sure he can't. I squeezed his hand. We're in this together now. For better or worse. The bond isn't complete, but it's real. And I'm choosing to stand with you. Not because I have to, but because it's the right thing to do. Relief and love flooded through the connection. So intense it stole my breath. Kai pulled me close, pressing his forehead to mine. After this is over, he whispered. If we survive, there are things I need to tell you. Things I should have said weeks ago. Tell me now. No. After. When we're safe. When I can say them without the shadow of war hanging over us. His lips brushed my forehead, gentle and reverent. Just know that you've become essential to me, Elena. More than mate bond or politics or pack law. You. My heart hammered. Kai. Plan our defense, he said, stepping back. Show me why you were such a successful rebel leader. Then we'll worry about everything else. I spent the next hour designing a layered defense strategy. Small teams positioned throughout the eastern forest, planned ambush points, retreat routes, signal systems. It was similar to tactics I'd used as a rebel, but reversed. Instead of attacking a superior force, we'd be defending against one. When I presented the plan to Kai and the council, I watched their faces shift from skepticism to respect. It's brilliant, Silas said. Risky but brilliant. It gives us a chance, Kai agreed. Which is more than we had an hour ago. He looked at me with something like pride. You're a natural strategist. I had good teachers. My mother's face flashed in my mind. She'd been teaching me pack defense before she died, preparing me to eventually lead. And good motivation. We spent the remaining hours before dawn preparing. Warriors were assigned to teams, positions established, weapons checked and rechecked. I found Kai on the battlements as the sky began to lighten, staring toward the eastern border. Scared, I asked softly. Terrified, not of dying, but of failing the pack. Of losing you before we've had a chance to really begin. I moved beside him, our shoulders touching. We're not going to lose. Your pack is strong, trained, motivated. And they have a good alpha leading them. Do they? Yes. I took his hand. You made hard choices, Kai. Maybe not perfect ones, but ones you believed were right. That's all any leader can do. I killed your mother. I know, and I'm still working through that. But I also know that you've spent 4 years trying to be worthy of the position you took. That counts for something." He turned to me, golden eyes intense in the pre-dawn light. "If we survive this." When we survive this," he corrected, a small smile touching his lips. "I want to complete the bond. Fully. No more hesitation or uncertainty. I want you as my mate in every sense." My breath caught. That's a big step. I know. But almost losing you before I've really had you. It clarifies things. Makes me realize that caution is just another word for cowardice sometimes. He cupped my face gently. "I'm done being afraid of what we could be. And if I'm still afraid, then we'll face that fear together. But Elena," his thumb traced my cheekbone, "I think you're not as afraid as you pretend. I think you've been ready for days, just waiting for the right moment to admit it." He was right. Through the bond, I could feel the truth. My wolf had been ready since the bond snapped into place. And my heart had been ready since I'd started seeing Kai clearly, seeing the man beneath the alpha, the guilt beneath the strength, the love beneath the control. "After the battle," I whispered, "when we're safe, we'll complete the bond." Joy and relief and love flooded through our connection. Kai kissed me then, soft and reverent and full of promise. Not a claiming kiss, but a covenant, a pledge of what would come. When we pulled apart, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. And from the eastern border, war horns sounded. Shadow Moon was attacking. "Positions." Kai's voice rang with alpha command. "Remember the plan. Make them pay for every step." Warriors scattered to their assigned locations. Kai pulled me close one last time. "Stay safe," he commanded. "Lead from behind. And if things go wrong, they won't. But if they do, I need to know you'll survive. That you'll run if necessary. Only if you promise the same." His smile was fierce. "Deal. Now go. Command your teams. Show Shadow Moon what happens when they attack Nightshade." I ran to my position, heart pounding, bond thrumming with shared determination. The war for Nightshade Keep had begun. And this time, I was fighting not against Kai, but beside him. For our pack. For our future. For the bond we'd both finally chosen to accept. Chapter 12, Blood and Bonds. The first wave hit just after sunrise. From my position on a ridge overlooking the eastern approach, I watched Shadow Moon warriors pour into the forest like a dark tide. 200 strong, moving in organized formations, confident in their numbers. They had no idea what waited for them. "Team 1, hold position," I said into the communication stone, a magical artifact that allowed coordinated commands across distance. "Let them pass your position. We want them deep in the forest before we strike." Confirmations came back through the stone. My heart hammered, but my mind was clear. This was what I'd trained for, what I'd done for 4 years. The only difference was the side I fought on. Through the bond, I felt Kai leading the main defensive force closer to the keep. His focus was absolute, his determination fierce. He trusted me to slow Shadow Moon's advance while he prepared the final defense. I wouldn't let him down. Team 2 on my mark. I watched the Shadow Moon warriors reach the predetermined point. Now, the forest erupted. Our wolves struck from concealed positions. Quick, brutal attacks that sent Shadow Moon's front ranks into chaos. Arrows from hidden archers. Ambushes from the underbrush. Hit fast, caused damage, retreat before they could organize a response. Shadow Moon's advance stuttered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Team 3, eastern flank. Team 4, prepare secondary positions. I coordinated the attacks like pieces on a chessboard, never giving Shadow Moon a stationary target, always keeping them off balance. It was working. They were bleeding warriors, losing momentum, growing frustrated. But they kept coming. Cedric was pushing them forward despite losses, determined to overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Team 1, fall back to secondary positions. Team 2, harass their rear guard. For 3 hours, we played this deadly game. Strike and retreat. Bleed them slowly. Make every yard of forest cost them dearly. Through the bond, I felt Kai's approval, his pride in my strategy. But also his growing concern as Shadow Moon continued their grinding advance toward the keep. "Elena," his voice came through the communication stone. "They're adapting to your tactics. Splitting into smaller groups, harder to ambush. How much longer can you slow them? Another hour, maybe 2. But they'll reach the keep eventually. Then fall back. All teams, withdraw to the keep's outer defenses. We'll make our stand there." I coordinated the withdrawal, ensuring all teams retreated in good order. We'd inflicted significant casualties. I estimated Shadow Moon had lost at least 50 warriors, maybe more. But they still had numbers on their side. By the time I reached the keep, the sun was high overhead. Warriors manned the walls, archers ready, defensive positions fortified. Kai stood at the main gate, a figure of absolute authority despite the blood staining his armor. Our eyes met across the courtyard, and relief flooded the bond. He'd been terrified something would happen to me in the forest. "Casualties?" he asked as I approached. 7 injured, none fatal. We gave better than we got. Your strategy bought us time and weakened their force significantly. He gripped my shoulder briefly. Well done. Before I could respond, horns sounded. Shadow Moon had reached the keep's outer defenses. Cedric rode to the front, his armor gleaming, his expression cold with determination. "Kai Thornridge, your forests have cost me blood, but I have warriors to spare. Surrender now, and I'll be merciful." "Your mercy isn't worth the breath you waste speaking it," Kai called back. "Withdraw, and this ends without more death. It ends when Nightshade bows to Shadow Moon. Not before." Cedric raised his hand, and his warriors surged forward. The battle for the keep began. Arrows darkened the sky. Warriors clashed at the walls. The sounds of combat filled the air, snarls, screams, the clash of steel and claw. I fought alongside Kai, our wolves moving in sync despite the bond being incomplete. It was like we'd been fighting together for years rather than hours. He covered my left flank. I protected his right. We moved as one unit, anticipating each other's actions through the bond. Shadow Moon warriors breached the outer wall. Hand-to-hand combat erupted in the courtyard. Blood slicked the stones. The scent of death hung heavy. Through it all, Kai fought with controlled fury, his alpha power radiating in waves. He was magnificent, deadly and precise, protecting his pack with everything he had. But we were still outnumbered, still being slowly overwhelmed despite our best efforts. "The eastern gate is failing." Silas's voice cut through the chaos. "They're breaking through. If they breached the eastern gate, they'd have access to the keep's interior, to the safe rooms where non-combatants sheltered, to families and children and wolves who couldn't fight. Fall back to the inner courtyard," Kai ordered. "Protect the keep itself." We retreated in fighting formation. Every step backward felt like failure, but it was strategic. Consolidate our forces. Make them pay for every inch. I found myself fighting beside Dessa, both of us protecting a group of younger warriors. "Just like old times," she shouted over the din, grinning despite the blood on her face. "Except we're on the other side." I parried a strike, drove my blade into an attacker's shoulder. "How's the arm?" "Better than yours will be if you don't watch your right side." I ducked just as a Shadow Moon warrior swung at my head. Dessa's blade took him down. The battle raged on. Minutes felt like hours. My muscles burned. My ribs ached from earlier injuries reopening. But I kept fighting because stopping meant death, meant failure, meant losing everything I'd finally started to build. Through the bond, I felt Kai's exhaustion matching my own. Felt his desperation as he calculated numbers and realized we were losing. Then something changed. A howl rose from the western border. Not Shadow Moon. Different. Stronger. Kai's head snapped up, shock flooding the bond. That can't be." More howls joined the first. Dozens. Hundreds. And through the keep's western gates poured wolves. Fresh warriors in different colors and sigils. Pack banners I didn't recognize. The allied packs. Silas's voice carried across the courtyard. "They came. Riverstone and Ironwood. They came." Hope surged through Nightshade's defenders. The allies Kai had been cultivating for years, the relationships he'd built through careful diplomacy, had come to our aid. 200 fresh warriors crashed into Shadow Moon's forces from behind. Cedric's advantage in numbers evaporated in moments. Now Shadow Moon was trapped between Nightshade's defenders and the allied reinforcements. The tide turned rapidly. "Push forward." Kai's command rang with renewed strength. "Take back our territory." We surged out of the inner courtyard, driving Shadow Moon back. They fought desperately now, no longer advancing, but simply trying to survive. I spotted Cedric, still mounted, trying to rally his warriors. Kai saw him at the same moment. "Cedric," Kai's voice carried across the battlefield. "Face me. Alpha to alpha. End this without more bloodshed." For a moment, I thought Cedric would refuse. Then he dismounted, drawing his blade. "Finally," he snarled. "I should have challenged you 4 years ago instead of trying to manipulate that fool Morgana." Rage flooded through me at his casual dismissal of my mother. I started forward, but Kai's hand shot out, stopping me. "My fight," he said quietly. "Trust me." Through the bond, I felt his determination. This wasn't just about defending the pack. It was about proving something, to Cedric, to the watching wolves, maybe to himself. I nodded, stepping back. "End him." The two alphas circled each other while the battle around them slowed. This was old tradition. Alpha challenges superseded regular combat. All wolves stopped to witness. Cedric struck first, fast and brutal. Kai blocked, countered, his movements precise and controlled. They were evenly matched in skill, but Kai had something Cedric didn't. Purpose. Love. A mate bond driving him to protect what he'd built. They fought with savage intensity. Claws and steel. Strength against strength. Alpha power radiating from both in waves that made lesser wolves step back. Blood flowed. Both warriors were injured, bleeding from multiple wounds. But Kai's eyes remained focused, his determination absolute. Through the bond, I fed him what strength I could. Felt his wolf draw on our connection, using the mate bond to push beyond normal limits. Cedric began to tire first. His strikes grew sloppy. His defense weakened. Kai pressed the advantage relentlessly. A feint left, strike right. Cedric stumbled. Kai's blade found his throat. "Yield," Kai commanded, the blade pressed against Cedric's pulse. For a heartbeat, I thought the older alpha would choose death over surrender. Then slowly, Cedric's hand opened, his weapon falling. I yield. Kai stepped back, breathing hard, covered in blood, both his and Cedric's. "Withdraw your warriors. Leave Nightshade territory. Come back, and there will be no mercy." Cedric nodded stiffly, defeat bitter on his face. Shadowmoon withdraws. The war is over. Cheers erupted from Nightshade and allied wolves. The battle was won. Kai stood tall despite his injuries, looking every inch the victorious alpha. His eyes found mine across the bloodied courtyard, and the bond blazed with triumph and relief and overwhelming love. I ran to him, not caring about propriety or protocol. He caught me, pulling me close despite his wounds. "You're hurt," I said, touching blood-soaked armor. "Nothing fatal." I'll heal." I looked up at him, this alpha who'd fought so hard for his pack. "For me. You did it. Saved everyone. We did it. Your strategy gave us the time we needed. Your leadership kept our warriors organized." He pressed his forehead to mine. "We defended our home together. Around us, wolves were celebrating, tending to wounded, securing prisoners. The allied pack's alphas approached to offer formal congratulations. But all I could focus on was Kai. Was the bond between us, stronger than ever, thrumming with shared victory and relief and the promise of what came next. "After this," I whispered. "After we've dealt with the aftermath." "The bond." "Yes," he breathed. "Elena, yes." The healers insisted on treating our wounds first. Hours passed in a blur of medical attention, debriefings, negotiations with allied alphas, ensuring the wounded were cared for and the dead were honored. By the time everything settled, night had fallen. The keep was secure. Shadowmoon had retreated. The allied packs had been given guest quarters and proper thanks. And Kai and I stood alone in his. Our chambers, the weight of the day finally catching up to us. 15 casualties total, Kai said quietly, staring out the window at the moonlit territory. 15 wolves dead because Cedric couldn't let go of a deal that never should have been made. We saved hundreds more. Protected the pack. That matters. Does it? He turned to me, exhaustion and pain in his eyes. I've been alpha for 4 years, Elena. For years of making impossible choices. Of carrying the weight of every death, every mistake. Sometimes I wonder if. I crossed the room and kissed him. Cut off his doubts and self-recrimination with the simplest answer I had. When we pulled apart, his eyes were blazing gold. I choose you, I said firmly. Not because of the mate bond or pack politics or anything else. Because of who you are. The man who carried guilt for 4 years rather than make excuses. Who could have executed me, but found another way. Who fights for his pack with everything he has. Elena, complete the bond with me. Now, tonight. No more waiting. No more uncertainty. His hands came up to cup my face, trembling slightly. Are you sure? This is permanent. There's no undoing it once. I'm sure. I covered his hands with mine. I've been sure since I watched you fight Cedric. Since I felt you draw strength from our incomplete bond and realized we're stronger together than apart. I want this. I want you. The kiss this time was different. Not gentle or questioning. This was claiming. Accepting. The first step toward completing what fate had started in that execution square. Kai's wolf surged forward, meeting mine. The bond flared, golden light seeming to fill the room as our souls recognized each other fully. Mine, Kai growled against my lips. Yours, I agreed. And you're mine. The mate bond completed in a rush of sensation and emotion so intense it drove us both to our knees. I felt Kai's soul twine with mine, felt our wolves merge into one unit, felt every barrier between us dissolve. His pain became my pain. His joy became my joy. We were separate, but also unified in a way I'd never imagined possible. When the intensity faded enough to think again, we were tangled together on the floor, breathing hard, the bond singing between us. How do you feel? Kai asked, his voice rough. Complete. I looked at him, seeing not just through my eyes but through the bond. Seeing the man I'd hated transformed into the mate I loved. Like I finally found what I didn't know I was missing. I love you. The words came out reverently. I've been falling in love with you since the moment you lifted your chin in that execution square and called me a coward. Took me a while to admit it, but Elena, I love you with everything I am. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I love you too. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere between hating you and understanding you, I fell. And now I can't imagine being anywhere else. He kissed me again, slower this time, savoring. Through the bond, I felt his overwhelming emotion, relief and joy and love so profound it made my chest ache. We made it to the bed eventually, shedding blood-stained clothes, tending to each other's wounds with gentle hands. Making love with the completed bond between us was transcendent. Not just physical but spiritual, two souls merging as deeply as two bodies. Afterward, we lay tangled together, the bond humming with contentment. What happens now? I asked softly. Now we rebuild. Together. Kai's fingers traced patterns on my shoulder. We strengthen alliances with Riverstone and Ironwood. Ensure Shadow Moon doesn't return. Build the pack into something worthy of your mother's legacy and strong enough to face whatever comes. And us, we stand together. Alpha and mate. Partners in everything. He pulled me closer. I know it hasn't been easy. That you've had to let go of so much. But Elena, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing this. Choosing me. I already don't regret it. I looked up at him, at this alpha who is now irrevocably mine. My mother used to say the moon goddess has a plan for all of us. We just have to be brave enough to follow it. Wise woman. She was. And I think she'd understand this. Would understand that sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places. Like your mate being the man who killed her? Like finding love in the aftermath of tragedy. Like building something new from the ashes of what was lost. I kissed his jaw. We can't change the past, but we can honor it by building a better future. Together. Together. We fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the mate bond settled and strong, connecting us in ways that transcended words or logic. Outside, the moon shone down on Nightshade Keep, on a pack that had survived war and was stronger for it, on an alpha and his mate who'd found each other in the most impossible circumstances and chosen love over hate. The war was over. The bond was complete. And our story, the real story, was just beginning. 6 months later, spring had transformed Nightshade Keep. I stood in the Grand Plaza, the same stones where I'd knelt awaiting execution 6 months ago, watching preparations for the spring gathering. Wolves moved with purpose and joy, hanging decorations, setting up tables, preparing for the celebration that would unite our allied packs. So much had changed since that dawn when Kai's blade had pressed against my throat. Since the mate bond had snapped into place and transformed everything. You're thinking too loudly again, Dessa said, appearing at my elbow with 2 cups of spiced cider. Here, drink. Celebrate. I took the cup gratefully. Just reflecting. This plaza looked very different the last time I stood here. Yes, well, execution squares generally aren't decorated with spring flowers and banners. Dessa grinned. Much prefer this version. She'd stayed at Nightshade Keep after the war, accepting a position as one of Kai's senior advisors. Many of my former rebels had chosen to integrate back into the pack, their loyalty shifting once they understood the truth about my mother's final months. Not all had stayed. Some had chosen exile, unable to accept Kai's rule. I respected that choice, even as it saddened me. How are the preparations going? I asked. Smoothly. Riverstone and Ironwood Alphas will arrive this evening. Even received word that Shadow Moon might send a delegation. Purely diplomatic, of course. 6 months since Cedric's defeat, and relations with Shadow Moon remained tense but non-hostile. The older Alpha had retreated to his territory and stayed there, apparently content to leave Nightshade alone after his humiliation. And the other thing? I asked quietly. Dessa's smile widened. The healer confirmed it this morning. You're definitely pregnant. Joy and terror flooded through me in equal measure. I'd suspected for weeks, but hadn't been ready to know for certain. A child. Kai's child. The next generation of Nightshade leadership growing inside me. Through the bond, I felt Kai's presence approaching before I saw him. He emerged from the keep, commanding and confident, every inch the alpha he'd grown into over these months. But when his eyes found me, they softened with love that still made my heart race. My ladies, he said, bowing slightly to us both. Dessa, could you give us a moment? Of course, Alpha. She winked at me before departing. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Kai pulled me close as soon as we were relatively alone. How are you feeling? Nervous. Excited. Terrified. I looked up at him. The healer confirmed it. We're going to have a child. The joy that blazed through the bond was overwhelming. Kai actually lifted me off my feet, spinning me once before setting me down carefully. A child, he breathed. Elena, I can't even. Words seemed to fail him, unusual for my eloquent mate. I know. I touched his face gently. New life. New beginnings. Everything we've built, now growing into the future. Do you think it's a boy or girl? Too early to tell. Does it matter? Not even slightly. He pressed his forehead to mine. Boy or girl, they'll be loved. Protected. Raised knowing both their grandmother's courage and their parents' journey. Knowing that healing is possible even from the deepest wounds. Over these months, we'd worked to honor my mother's memory properly. Had erected a memorial in the Pack Gardens with her full history. Both her accomplishments and her final struggles. Truth, not propaganda. Recognition that she'd been flawed but loved, powerful but fallible. It had been healing, giving her a proper legacy instead of the simplified narrative of traitor or saint. I wish she could have met you, I said quietly. The real you. Seen what you've built here. I wish that too. Kai's voice held old pain, but not the crushing guilt it once had. We'd worked through so much together. In therapy with the Pack's wisdom keeper, in long conversations late at night, in the simple act of building a life together. But she lives on in you. In our child. In the Pack we're building. Speaking of which, I pulled back slightly. I have something for you. From my pocket, I drew a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, simple silver, engraved with both the Nightshade and Thornridge Pack symbols intertwined. We have the mate bond, I explained. But I wanted something physical too. A symbol we can both wear. To show that we chose this. That it's not just fate but decision. Kai's eyes shone with emotion as he took the ring, examining the craftsmanship. It's perfect. Did you make this? With help from the Pack's metalsmith. There's one for me too. I showed him the matching ring. If you want to wear them. I know it's not traditional. He silenced me with a kiss. When we pulled apart, he was already sliding his ring on. Nothing about us has been traditional. Why start now? I put on my own ring, feeling the weight of it. A physical reminder of everything we'd overcome, everything we'd chosen. The allied alphas will arrive soon, Kai said. We should prepare for the welcoming ceremony. In a moment, I looked around the plaza, at the Pack moving with purpose and joy. I want to remember this. How far we've come. How different everything is now. Tell me what you see. I see home. The word came easily now, without the bitterness it once held. I see wolves who are thriving, not just surviving. I see the Pack my mother loved, stronger and more united than ever. And I see us, proof that even the most impossible situations can transform into something beautiful. Poetic. I've been practicing. Someone told me alphas need to be good with words. That someone was very wise. Kai's hand found mine, our rings catching the spring sunlight. Are you ready for tonight? For the formal announcement. Tonight, we'd announce my pregnancy to the allied Packs. Make it official that Nightshade's succession was secure. That the future was bright. I'm ready. Are you? With you? Always. We walked together toward the keep, hands joined, bond singing between us. Around us, Pack members called greetings, children played, life flourished. This was what we'd fought for, what we'd bled for. Not just survival, but this thriving growth, joy emerging from tragedy. As we entered the keep, I caught sight of my reflection in a polished mirror. The woman looking back was different from the rebel leader who'd knelt in the plaza 6 months ago. Stronger somehow, more certain, complete. Elena Nightshade Thornridge, mate to the Alpha, future mother, leader in her own right. My mother's daughter, but also my own woman, carrying her legacy forward while building something new. The evening's ceremony went perfectly. Allied Alphas arrived with gifts and congratulations. The formal announcement of my pregnancy was met with genuine celebration. These packs had watched our unlikely bond develop, had seen us grow from enemies to partners. Even Shadowmoon's diplomatic delegation offered stiff but genuine congratulations. Late that night, after all the festivities, Kai and I escaped to the battlements. The same place we'd stood before Cedric's attack, making promises we'd since fulfilled. Do you ever regret it? I asked quietly. Everything that happened, the choices you made. Kai was silent for a long moment, considering. I regret the pain those choices caused. The loss. Your mother's death. The 4 years you spent in the wilderness. All of it. He turned to me. But I can't regret where it led us. Can't regret finding you, even in such terrible circumstances. Does that make me selfish? It makes you human. Or wolf. Whatever. I leaned against him. I understand what you mean. I wouldn't choose the path we walked. But I'd choose the destination every time. Our child will never know that pain, Kai said fiercely. We'll grow up in peace, surrounded by love, understanding that even difficult pasts can lead to beautiful futures. And we'll tell them the truth. All of it. The good and the bad. My mother's story. Your story. How we found each other. They'll think we're insane. Probably. But they'll also understand that love is worth fighting for. That healing is possible. That the moon goddess really doesn't make mistakes, even when her plans seem cruel. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the territory stretch out before us. Somewhere in those forests, I'd led rebels. Had fought against everything this keep represented. Now I stood here as its lady, carrying its future in my womb, bound to its alpha by choice and fate. The moon rose, full and bright. Under its light, I felt my mother's presence, not sad or angry, but peaceful. Approving even. You did well, my heart, I imagined her saying. Found your own path. Built your own future. That's all I ever wanted for you. I love you, I said to Kai. Not for the first time, but the words never lost their power. I love you too. He kissed my temple. Thank you for giving me a chance. For seeing past the monster you thought I was to the man I tried to be. Thank you for being worth the chance. We returned to our chambers as the moon climbed higher. Made love with the tenderness of mates who'd earned each other through trials and forgiveness. Fell asleep wrapped together. Our unborn child safe between us, the mate bond strong and sure. 6 months ago, I'd knelt in a plaza awaiting death. Tonight, I slept in my mate's arms, carrying new life, surrounded by love and possibility. The journey from there to here had been impossible, painful, transformative. But standing here now, feeling Kai's steady heartbeat beneath my ear, feeling the bond pulse between us, feeling the tiny flutter of life beginning inside me, I wouldn't change a moment. Because sometimes the cruelest twists of fate lead to the most beautiful destinations. And sometimes, the person you're supposed to hate becomes the person you can't live without. The moon goddess, it seemed, really did know what she was doing, even when her methods seemed